It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Raisin Bran. You got to put Raisin Bran up there. Everybody knows it.
It's Mike Schopp.
Listen, get your own stupid old dying person team and choose your own cereals.
And the Bulldog.
I shall unleash my fury upon you like the crashing of 1,000 waves.
That cereal is soggy. You reach into the fridge for the milk and open the lid on the milk to pour it in there, and that crap is already soggy.
I am untethered and my rage knows no bounds.
That's a problem. That's a problem for a cereal. I
Huge
think.
problem.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog on WGR Sports Radio 550.
Hey, look, I know today seems like a weird day to have our first ever cereal draft, but I mean that's the plan. I cleared it with the boss. Mike's not here to stop me, so we're going to start ranking cereals. Is it going to be a problem if my favorite cereal is only available in Canada?
Ooh. To time.
Are those the tariffs? Is that it? If I just go, maybe I can smuggle it. I don't know. I don't want to get in any trouble with anyone. I don't want to piss off PK Subban. I want to be very careful here about it all. Hey, man. Sorry, lame jokes to begin. I'm sort of. I feel like I'm in a very weird place because it has been a very, very long time since I have myself felt this excited about a hockey game. And I think it has also been a very long time for a lot of you. If look, it's a Twitter poll. It's not exact, but much earlier today in the morning, at some point, I put up. I asked a question. When's the last time you were this excited for a hockey game? I'm asking Sabres fans and hockey fans. And look, just so I get this out there right now, I'm hoping to talk about this game a lot today. But I'm going to need, if you're one of these people that I occasionally hear from on social media or via email that feels like there's too much football and we don't spend enough time on hockey anymore. We talk about what we believe people are really interested in. That's generally what we do. And the hockey team has, I feel like for a while here, we have wrung out just about every bit of passion that you can out of a conversation about the Sabres. This is bigger than that. This is hockey on the world stage. I know it's not the Olympics. It's not even the World Championships. It's maybe even a gimmicky mid-season tournament that the NHL came up with, but bring the NHL their flowers. If you are one of these people that is out there that wants more hockey content, today's your day. But I'm going to need you to help me do it because I'm just going to talk about this by myself for 4 hours. I've done that. I just don't intend to do that again. I don't intend to do that today. So lines are open. We've got a few guests to sprinkle in, and there will be some football. In about an hour, we'll spend some time on the Browns with Spencer German, who works for our Odyssey station in Cleveland and is also the host of a Browns-centric podcast called, appropriately enough, Locked On Browns. So there'll be a little football window in there, but mostly I'm hoping a lot of hockey. Joe Yerdon, our buddy from Bleacher Report, who was in Montreal for the front end of this thing, is going to be with me at 5, and we'll get Paul Hamilton in at 6. Notice how I'm not saying Paul will come in at 6 to ruin everything. I'm excited about this tournament finale and am very much looking forward to pouring it over with you out there because I think it is scratching an itch that we, particularly in Buffalo, have not really had the urge to scratch in a long, long time. Again, my Twitter poll, if it's any indication, the two runaway winners, I asked, when's the last time you were this excited about a hockey game? And look, I included last year's Stanley Cup playoffs just because, that's the trophies being awarded, and I get excited to watch the NHL playoffs. I mean, I'm used to the Sabres not being there anymore, but I'm still there, and especially the final, and we get to a Game 7 and yada, yada. That's exciting to me. This is blowing that out of the water. The two choices that are dominating here are a very long time ago. It's the Sabres' last playoff appearance. You have to go to the spring of 2011 for that. I said Game 7 because that series against Philly, that first-round series, went to a Game 7, and I got a lot of people that pushed back with, actually, I was more excited for Game 6. The Sabres had pushed the thing to a Game 6. They won Game 5 in Philly, came back home, Easter Sunday afternoon game at the arena, and they ended up losing in overtime. Who knew? Ville Laino, the agent of our demise, scores the goal. The Sabres sign him that summer, and, we've been sort of spiraling ever since. Not that it's all Ville Laino's fault, but he's a character, certainly in the play. So 2011. Before that, the other choice that's sort of in a dead heat is Ryan Miller in the Olympics with Team USA against Team Canada and Sidney Crosby in the 2010 Vancouver Olympics. So, a lot of you, I'm sure, I don't any longer have children who weren't alive for that, but I'll bet a lot of you do. Maybe even some of our audience is not old enough to even barely remember Ryan Miller in the Olympics. But that's where you got to go, I think, to find this level of excitement. Again, even though this isn't the Olympics, it's a new thing, but I think the show that these two teams and these players put on Saturday night in Montreal with the 3 fights in 9 seconds to start the game and just how dynamic and skillful and fast the game was on Saturday night has a lot of us looking forward to it. Us hockey fanatics are really excited about this. And the weird thing to me is like the NHL, I already said, like, give them their flowers. They deserve it. I don't need to run down the entire list of things that you can criticize the NHL for. It's lengthy and it's a real bummer. All right. Very high on the list is them not doing this for 9 years. And even the last time they did it, it wasn't truly this, Team North America with Eichel and McDavid on the same team. I mean, it was cool they found a way to get them in the tournament, but it was an odd thing. And not to say this thing was not, odd, but it has captured, the timing of it's captured the imagination of hockey fans and I think sports fans. And hockey very rarely crosses over like that. Like, we love it. I already said I love the Stanley Cup playoffs. I watch games every night, all through the spring into the summer, waiting for someone to hoist the cup. I'm that guy, and I know lots of you are like that. But this has reached another level, and I am very excited to see what it looks like. I'm very excited to talk with all of you about it as we go here. This is like where are you going? Who are you hanging out with? What are you eating type of thing. I don't want to get too far. It's not the Super Bowl, but we're getting pizza tonight at my house, okay? That's not an uncommon occurrence, but on a weeknight, whoa! So, it's a big day for hockey. And the weird thing for me is I'm not a stakeholder unless you consider me working for a media company and hosting a sports radio talk show is having a stake. Obviously, if things are of interest and capturing the imagination of lots of sports fans, that's good for me. If it's a sport that I grew up loving and still love to this day, even better. But I'm not the guy that's looking for this to propel the NHL to a new record television rights deal or something so the salary cap can go up. I don't care. I don't give a rat's ass about hockey-related revenues anymore. Growing the game is not of great interest to me, at least from an attention span level at the NHL level. I watch the sport. I love the sport. I'm done campaigning for you to get on board with it. It's not something I'm interested in. I do really like the possibility that exists for kids of all ages out there to see something, to see their parents excited about something that, about a hockey game, and what kind of spark that could provide for, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12-year-old kids out there, or even older kids than that. I love that. I think that is super cool. But as far as, the league reaching some new heights or something, I don't really care. I'm not wouldn't be upset if it happens, but it's not why I'm excited about this. It's simply that there's a moment here for a sport that I feel is, often overlooked and that I've loved my whole life, and it's on center stage tonight. I mean, there's some NBA regular season games. There's some college basketball games going on. I mean, there's other stuff happening here. But this thing with it's been gaining momentum through last week into the weekend. I mean, 1 million people watched the games midweek last week on ESPN and TNT, and 4.5 million more just in America watched it on the weekend, on Saturday. Team USA and Team Canada having at it, and I'm excited to see what that looks like and how many eyeballs this thing gets. But again, that's not my angle here. I don't really worry about that. I just like hockey having this moment. And in particular for Sabres fans who, you could be in a weird spot here if you think too hard about it. You've got important guys, top-line players on each team here who were on the Sabres back in 2015 and 16. Reinhart, the 14 draft, Eichel, the 15 draft. Of course, both have been traded away. Both have won the Stanley Cup. Both are top-line, world-class players playing in this tournament. And that stings, right? I mean, there's no other way to say that. That stings. And I don't know, you might have trouble rooting for either one of those guys because they're not on your team anymore and they scorned you. I get that in particular with Eichel. I've always felt like Reinhart was a little more defensible because the Sabres sort of, I don't know, they kind of ignored him for a while until he finally went, you know what, the hell with this. I want to get out of here too, and he did. But you don't have a guy here. And that's a problem, right? I mentioned yesterday, I was talking with Nate while he was here about, because 2010 Olympics, I think, is a touchstone. I think it's an entirely reasonable idea that the last time a hockey fan in Western New York was this excited about a hockey game was back then. The Sabres have been in the playoffs exactly one time since then, and it was just the first round against Philadelphia. And Miller, the nerves, it's the goalie, it's Team USA, it's Team Canada, it's Vancouver. There was a lot there. And the anxiety that you get from having, quote unquote, a horse in the race is missing for me in this instance. Like, I'm not particularly inclined to root against Eichel or root against Reinhart or just root for America plainly. If some Sabre Canadian player, some Canadian-born Sabre player rated enough being on Team Canada, I think I would probably be rooting for Team Canada tonight because I would want the guy on the Sabres to win. I was very invested. I got to go back to 1998 now, but I was very invested in Dominik Hasek winning the gold medal in the Nagano Olympics, playing for the Czech Republic. He was our dude, man. He was a back-to-back MVP. Well, he wasn't yet. I mean, that was 98. Anyway, still, it was incredible to have him on that stage, and this is lacking that. Tage Thompson got to take a trip to Boston. He's not expected to play, as Team USA is expected to have their full complement of guys for this game. Anybody that's been dinged up or missing time as precautionary is expected to be good to go, with the exception of Charlie McAvoy, who's been in a different category for the last 48 hours or so. There's a serious injury and an infection, and maybe some questions about how he was treated by Team USA's doctors and medical people. The Bruins seem upset about it. Anyway, it's a whole other sidebar story to this. bottom line, we've got a day here, hockey people. Where are you? I need to hear from you about this. If you want to reminisce about the last time you felt this much juice for a hockey game, that's totally cool. You want to talk about the players that are going to play in this game tonight, that is also totally cool. You want to guess about whether there'll be any fights? Fine. Anything surrounding this game is where I want to be with you all today. At 803-0550, again, is the number. I laid out the guest list for you. Some football at 4 on the Browns with Spencer German. Then Joe Yurden at 5 on this tournament, and Paul Hamilton with more of the same at 6. Let's fire it up at 803-0550. Patrick is first up here on WGR this afternoon. Patrick, hello. You are on the air.
Hey, Bulldog. I've heard you say a couple times this week that you really don't care very much who wins this game, and I would push back and say I definitely do, and the reason is because of those 2 gold medal game losses. I don't know if you remember Salt Lake City in 2002, but Mario Lemieux faked like he was getting a pass, and pretty much all of Canada genuflected, and I thought that was really annoying. And then that 2010 game, I mean, that is on the list for me of sports heartbreaks that I would like to see avenged. I mean, I know it's not apples to apples, it's not a gold medal game, but when Zach Parise tied the game in the waning seconds, that's one of those I remember exactly where I was and who I was with moments. And for Sidney Crosby, who I hated at the time because he was the NHL golden boy, to score I would say a debatably soft goal in OT on Miller, that's just one of the ones that leaves a mark. So I can't wait for tonight, and it's great to be back invested in high-stakes hockey.
Yeah, love it, Patrick. Totally respect that. I was for a very long time while Owen was growing up. My oldest son, who played goalie and played hockey, took us on a great ride. I've been a card-carrying member of USA Hockey. I think that will probably come out as the game gets going. Saturday night was similar. I said before that, and I'm still saying it now, I'm not that worried about it. I'm not nervous about the outcome. But if the game is tied late, I'm going to be rooting for the USA, I think, because I like the idea of them rolling into the Olympics next February in Italy having done this. And I think that will feel good, have beaten Canada in a spot like this where both teams, all the players, all the participants really want it. And you get them. I would like to see that. So my preference would be USA, but I'm not going to be pacing around my house, pulling whiskers out of my face like I was in 2010 during the gold medal game in the Vancouver Olympics when Miller was in goal for Team USA and Sidney Crosby beat him with, Miller went for a poke check and Crosby crossed him up and shot it and got him between the legs with what, didn't look like, soft goal. I mean, you can debate it, but he didn't pick a corner. He didn't deke him out of his shoes. He just sort of threw it at the net and got him. I was a basket case during that game. So much so that I had to shave my beard off because I was pulling whiskers out of my face. I swear to God, does it sound disgusting? It is disgusting. That's why I had to stop it. So I did. This is not that. Maybe if it were the Olympics, it would be that. But I'm telling you, for me, the big piece that's missing there is Miller and not having a guy. Tage Thompson just missed making this team, so much so that he was a potential injury or illness call-up. He went to Boston yesterday, we found out. We don't expect him to have the chance to play. If you had that, then maybe there's pacing and there's nerves. I don't feel that. I don't feel any of the anxiety you often feel before a big sporting event. Game 7 against the Flyers back in 2011. Nerves. Game 6 even, I skipped Easter dinner at my parents' house because I did not want to be in a room full of people who would be just reacting to everything. I wanted to be in a bubble. So I ended up watching that game by myself. That is not, I don't have that today. And that's not just because I'm older and I'm more mellow. It's not having a dude in the game, really. To me, you can get tied up in knots trying to figure out who you can root for with the cleanest conscience, right? USA, Eichel, scorned. We're still mad at him, right? Austin Matthews is Toronto's captain. That doesn't feel good. On the Canadian side, I didn't get McDavid. He's the best player. Crosby, the caller mentions, I mean, I've softened on him over the years, but it's not a player that I'm like, I got to see Crosby win again. Sam Reinhart was on the Sabres. He's not anymore. Like, they're all kind of the same to me. Whether they're Canadian or American, I'm just sort of looking at the stars, and I want to see a display. I just want to see I want to see the talent. I want to see a great game more than anything else. I can live with any result. Preference USA, sure. Fly the flag. I don't mean to say that like disparagingly or flippantly. That would be my preference, but it's not urgent. I'm not wound up about it. I'm wound up about the spectacle that I think we should get tonight from this game. Jerry is next up. Hi, Jerry. Thanks for calling. You're on the air here on WGR.
Hey, Chris. I think we're in lockstep here. You and I are the same age. We grew up liking the same things. I have to see the Cup every year, regardless of how far the Sabres are from ever winning that. If it's a deciding game, I stay up until the end, and I have to see the Cup. My concern with this is I don't need a blip in popularity for this league because they can't get simple things right, like 3-2-1 score, standing scoring, white jerseys at home. I don't need them to be more popular and think, we need to have games in Mexico City and we need to have championships at neutral sites. And this league can be really stupid, and I don't need them to have more confidence and be stupider, okay? And it's like that restaurant that nobody goes there because nobody knows about it. I love the NHL because no one knows about it. It's just it's always been such a good product to me. Not so much lately, but because of the Sabres, but I don't need everybody to know it's a great product. All that does is drive the price and allow them to do stupid stuff. The one thing I can say about this series is that I really enjoy is we are out Canadianing the Canadian team. Canadians have always stood for this tough, hard-nosed, run you out of the rink hockey, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I like that point a lot. Like seeing the reaction. Thanks, Jerry. I love stupider. Seeing the reaction to Saturday night and Canadian fans and Canadian media like, we should have brought Tom Wilson was awesome. I mean, awesome, all caps, awesome. Like, we needed a tougher guy to deal with the Kachuk brothers. Like, I love that about what happened Saturday. It's my favorite thing by a mile about the fights was the reaction to it from Canada. Like, if Tom Wilson would have been there, I'll tell you what. Well, he wasn't. So, too bad. Love that. And I don't know. If you're tuning this game on tonight at 8:20 or whenever they're going to drop the puck, expecting that again, look, I don't want to tell you you're going to be disappointed with great authority because I did not see Saturday night coming at all. I mean, I'd never thought once to mention it. I wasn't thinking about it. We sat down to watch that game, and that happened, and my mouth was hanging open. I'm like, what is even happening right now? I would be stunned if in a game with this stake to win the tournament, if anything like that happened again, at least right off the hop like that, like tone setting. I think, America explained what they were trying to do there. They wanted to make sure emphatically, we are here and you're going to have to deal with us. And they did that. You don't have to do that again. You won the game. So, and Canada, well, Tom Wilson isn't there. And I kind of doubt that they're going to line Hagel and Bennett and Doughty up or something. They're like, okay, let's go. I'm just not expecting that. Again, I didn't see Saturday coming, so bear that in mind. Good start. We'll keep her going. 803-0550. Keep her going. See, it sounds like a hockey thing already. I'm in a hockey state of mind. 803-0550 is the number. A big night for hockey. A big night for hockey fans in a market that has been starving for hockey to really invest in. Sabres fans, it's been a rough road, man. Try not to think too much about Eichel and Reinhart. Just enjoy the spectacle. That's what I'm trying to do. 803-0550 is the number. We'll keep the calls going as we continue here on WGR.
We
and enjoying these opportunities. So I think that our team does not care about anything that they say, and there's been a lot of chatter and talk from individuals, but we care about one thing in this room, and we have millions of people that are watching us and supporting us around this country, and we're very prideful in playing for them and the guys in the room. It's an opportunity of a lifetime for us.
Team USA winger Matthew Tkachuk referring to some comments by Brandon Hagel, who he fought off the opening faceoff of Saturday night's preliminary round-robin game. I've been using preliminary. It was round-robin part of the thing, whatever. Tournament this short, it's everything just happened so fast. But I guess Hagel afterward caught wind of the fact that the Americans, Brady and Matthew in particular, and JT Miller all copped to, we had a group chat going talking about how we wanted to do this, start these fights at the beginning of the game. And Hagel took some sort of a shot at that, and that's Tkachuk reacting to that. And so I'm expecting none of that kind of stuff. I think you're going to see a high-tempo, fast-paced, physical hockey game tonight. I would just be surprised if there's more of that. I don't think Canada should feel inclined to answer what happened on Saturday from that standpoint, from a fisticuffs standpoint, nor do I think Team USA should be interested in reestablishing it. Like they did what they wanted to do on Saturday, and they ended up winning the game, and they're meeting again tonight. So I'm expecting cooler heads, but again, I'll say it. I didn't see what happened at the beginning on Saturday coming. It was a jaw dropper for sure. I am the Bulldog. Mike Schopp has been away this week. Zach Jones is here with me today. We'll get some football in at the top of the hour on the Browns, and then lots of hockey in the back half of the show. Joe Yurden at 5 covering the NHL for Bleacher Report. He was in Montreal for the front end of this thing, so we'll touch base with Joe. Been a while for me anyway, since I've talked to Joe. And then Paul Hamilton will be on closer to the back end of the show here at 6 o'clock is when we've got Paul scheduled. For now, it's just us hanging out, man, talking some hockey. 803-0550 is the phone number. How long's it been for you since you've been this jacked about a hockey game? I mean, we live in Buffalo. It's tough. The pickings have been slim. For me, I go back. For me, it would be Game 7 against Philadelphia in 11. By the way, if I haven't said that directly, I was really dialed in 2010 for the Olympics with Ryan Miller in goal for Team USA, playing for a gold medal. But 2011 is after 2010, so I got a cop to being that jacked about that Philly series in 2011. It's one of the biggest letdown Game 7s I've ever experienced in my life, too. The Sabres were they were hurt, but they were just a no-show in a Game 7, and it was very tough to watch. So anyway, that's my answer to that question. But really, anything goes on this tournament, on tonight. How you're looking at it is what I'm here for. 803-0550 is the number. Sam is first up this segment. Hi, Sam. Thanks for calling. You're on WGR.
Hey, Chris. Thanks. What a refreshing afternoon talking hockey instead of wide receivers and $15 million halfbacks. This is so much fun. Thanks.
Good. You're welcome.
I was in Vancouver. I'm an American living in Canada. And I was in Vancouver. It was such a gut punch. Never got over it. But after the Bills, my favorite team on earth is USA Hockey. And I've been waiting my whole life, I think, for this game to happen and us to win. So I'm really excited about it. I'm just super happy that you're spending all the time on it. Thanks, Chris.
Sure thing, Sam. Yeah. I mean, do you go back to 96? Because Team USA beat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a long time ago now. It's not as recent as these other examples that I've cited: Vancouver Olympics and the Sabres in the playoffs. Although you're not really bringing up the Sabres at all. But 96 was awesome. I remember that. That was a 2 out of 3, and the USA took Game 3 to win it. These players right now, what Team USA has. I wouldn't want to say the same flippantly about Canada's loaded with talent too, obviously, with McKinnon and McDavid and Makar. I mean, 3 and Crosby, 4 of the very best players in the world. Team Canada's had teams with Gretzky and Lemieux on the same line. Like they've had teams like this before. I think the big difference in this series and in this era is what Team USA can put on the ice, because you don't have a player as decorated as Crosby, nor I think as talented as McDavid or McKinnon. To me, Matthews, Jack Hughes are at the top end of this Team USA roster. If Quinn Hughes were there, I'd say he might be as comparable to Makar as you're going to get. But I think McDavid and McKinnon are a cut above even Matthews and Hughes, splitting hairs, Jack Eichel. But overall, a team that's got those three guys on it, Eichel, Matthews, Jack Hughes, and is supplemented by guys like the Tkachuk brothers and Dylan Larkin playing a complementary role, is the best looking Team USA team I've ever seen. To me, it's just not even close. And again, I love that 96 team, but that's the difference, I think, right now between the two countries is Team USA has comparable star power. Again, I think McDavid and McKinnon and Makar are better than any of their counterparts on Team USA, but the group that Team USA has at the very top end of their roster is the best I've ever seen. To me, it just is. And hopefully there's more of that coming, because I think they've really closed that gap of the high-end players. And this tournament has been a pleasure to watch. And in goal, they're much better than Canada. There have been column inches written the past 2 weeks about what Canada's goaltending development problem is, because they're leaning on Jordan Binnington. And, I mean, I guess he could have a great game tonight, but I wouldn't bet on him over Hellebuck at all. Thanks again for the call, Sam, and I hope you get your wish. Mark is next up. Hi, Mark. Thank you for calling. You're on WGR.
How you doing, Chris? Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I just wanted to say that I'm on board with everything you're saying, but I think the NHL got this right. I mean, it's a short tournament. You look at football, they turn the Pro Bowl into a flag football. You look at the NBA, they barely break a sweat in these All-Star appearances. But you look at this game, I'm shocked at the level of play that these guys are bringing. It's amazing to me that they're playing this hard, and I think part of it has to do with Canadian fans booing the national anthem. I think that lit a fire under them to a certain extent. I'm starving for hockey just like you are. Mm-hmm. I watch every Sabres game. I've been a fan for 50-some years. I've been to playoff games, finals for the Stanley Cup. I haven't been excited about anything the way I am to watch this. And I really can't believe that the players and the teams are allowing this type of hard-hitting game for an exhibition. I mean, that check that McDavid took last week
from McAvoy
on the boards was just unbelievable. You know, here you have probably the most talented hockey player on earth out there, not only getting hit, but taking the hit and playing the game full force. This has been a pleasure to watch, and I can't say enough about, what they did here, putting this together. And like you said, a short turnaround, so you can get right into it. It progresses fast, and then it's over back to the regular season for us. That's unfortunate. And as far as not having a dog in the fight, with respect to having a player, right? I think we've all been used to watching our star players take off. The Eichels, the Reinhardts, the Allmarks, the O'Reillys. I mean, you can go on and on with the list that we have wasted in this area for horrible reasons. And people criticize Jack Eichel, but I'm going to say, it's my opinion, that if I was Jack Eichel, I would have done anything to get off that team. He had so much talent, as you can see in his play. O'Reilly wins a cup. Montour, Reinhardt win a cup. Allmark, you can go on and on with the list. I mean, and Eichel did the same thing. So I'm not bruised. My ego's not bruised that we don't have anybody. We do have people out there. They were on our team. We just wasted them.
All right, Mark. I appreciate the call. Full credit to the NHL. Your point about what the other all-star exhibitions have become in the other sports is well taken. I dearly hope, I mean, really, that the NHL does not. I mean, next year is Olympics, so that's it. I'm assuming there will be no all-star break because of the Olympic break. And then the year after that is another world championship, right? No, it's going to be 2 years after. So there'll be a year in between there, right? I think where they could try 26, 27 will be a year without any of this scheduled, right? That's it moving forward. Olympics next year. 2 years after that is the next, are they calling it the World Cup of Hockey again? I think where there'll be 8 nations involved. We'll see about Russia, I suppose. But I really hope they do not try to stuff some kind of an all-star weekend down our throats in the year where there isn't this international best-on-best opportunity, because there's just no use for it at all. And seeing what we're seeing here, you want to give the guys a week off in the season? Great. I don't need you to have an all-star game. We can skip it permanently because, I couldn't agree more. I didn't watch a minute of Pro Bowl coverage. I didn't watch a minute of all-star NBA coverage. I saw some stuff that, guys were cheating the skills competition at the NBA or cutting and looking at it, what am I even watching? What is this? And meanwhile, on Saturday night, we had the Kachuk brothers and JT Miller and McDavid and Eichel and everyone here doing what they were doing. It's a great showcase. I do hope that this McAvoy situation, and even Shea Theodore to an extent, who got hurt in the very first game of the tournament and is going to miss probably the rest of the regular season for the Vegas Golden Knights. McAvoy's hospitalized with an infection that it seems came from a shot of some kind he was given to be able to play on Saturday night. These are players that matter in playoff races. I really hope the NHL does not get pressured by owners and general managers to scale this sort of thing back, because the players love it. And man, I'll bet as much as they want to be there for their teams, I think they would take going all out in a tournament like this 100 times out of 100. The pride and to be a part of something so special and to see it embraced like it's been embraced, not just by hockey fans, but by the sports world, you got to just find a way to set whatever. There are problems. Like, it's easy for me to say I don't have a team in a playoff race. I don't have a player in this tournament. We had Dahlin and Jokiharju and UPL, but the Sabres are miles away from it mattering if those guys finish the season or not. If they were in a wild card race, maybe it would be a different story for me, like with the Bruins or with the Canucks, who, Quinn Hughes did not want to travel across the country if he wasn't absolutely guaranteed an opportunity to play, because he's coming back from injury and Vancouver's in a playoff race, and I respect that. You just have to leave this as it is and let it grow, and every couple years revisit it and have it again, and not be scared off by the damage that gets done to individual players and or their teams, because I think the bigger picture is that this has been awesome for the fans to watch, and that's why they're all there, is to be awesome for the fans to watch. And this has been as awesome as hockey has been in a long, long time, at least for residents in Buffalo, New York, for sure. 803-0550 is the number. We'll squeeze in a few more calls before we get to the top of the hour. I am the Bulldog. Mike Schopp is on vacation this week. Thanks for listening to WGR.
More
Hanging out with me today, Zach Jones along for the ride as well. Mike Schopp has been off this week, and we are jazzed about tonight's. I'm so sorry I used that. Anyway, we're really pumped about tonight's game. Team USA, Team Canada, 8 o'clock, 8:20 probably, face-off. Lot of pregame, lot of attention on this after Saturday's fisticuffs to start the game and the exhibition that it was. I'm using exhibition like it implies that guys aren't going, and they were going on Saturday. It was really, really great to see. And tonight, the NHL got something right, and this has been a godsend, I think, for me, to have hockey at this level, to see that talent all on the ice is just fantastic for the first time in such a very long time. Really loving it and enjoying all the feedback getting today on social media and, of course, here on the show at 803-0550. With that in mind, Rick is first up this segment. Hi, Rick. Thanks for calling. You're on the air.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call, Bulldog. It's great, our geographical location. I've got friends and relatives all over the country that are huge hockey fans, but envious that we're a border city, and Detroit and Seattle's new to the game, but the fact that we get all the Toronto radio stations and TV stations, a unique perspective, and some of my friends that don't live in the area can't understand how I can be a Canada fan. I'm like, well, you spend a lot of time up there as a kid playing hockey and coaching it in adulthood. You get used to it. Plus, to see some of the best in the world on the same line together. Hopefully, there's a few power plays so we can see that power play. But my hockey games, I'm amped up. 1980, the USA-Finland gold medal game, which kind of gets lost in the glow of the USA-USSR game, and then I guess Game 6 of the Sabres-Stars series final back in 1999.
Yeah, man, you got to go back a ways, Rick. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. I feel the proximity to Canada point big time. I spent a lot of time in Canada in the summers when my family was, my wife's family was fortunate enough to have a place there that we our kids got to grow up there. And hockey-wise, and we spent the 2 years before Owen went to Nichols, before he ended up playing juniors out in New Mexico, we were with the Regals, and we were the only American team in an all-Canadian league. So we spent a lot of time in rinks all around the Golden Horseshoe and even up farther north. Ultimately, we got to Sault Ste. Marie when they drafted him. I love a lot about hockey culture in Canada. I mean, it's got its problems. It's had its issues for sure, big cultural issues. But I feel the embrace of the sport and being so close to Canada has definitely had a spillover effect on, I think, us regionally speaking. And it's part of the reason I don't feel as much juice on, I need Team USA to stomp out Canada. Like, Canada's a weird enemy to have, and I don't use that word because of the booing and the 51st state and all the nonsense. I couldn't care less. It's just we're more Canadian than I think any other, maybe like Detroit, like the caller says. I think there's a certain the proximity, the tragically hip even is a part of that. I think. It's culturally different here, I think, our relationship to Canada than it is in, because it's so close. We visit all the time, and, people in the middle of the country don't have any idea what that relationship is like because, they're in the Midwest and they're kind of landlocked and they don't have a 20-minute ride to go across the border and hang out like we all did. So this is a different thing, man. So not having anybody on really either team that I have like ties to and rooting interest in, like they play for my favorite NHL team or anything, has me sort of missing the buzz and the anxiety of, I really need a certain result. I just want a great game is all I'm looking for. Thanks for the call so far. We'll definitely get back into this as we continue through the afternoon. We're going to shift gears, though, after the top of the hour update. Spencer German covers the Browns for our Odyssey station in Cleveland and also is the host of a Locked On Browns podcast. And we'll go over Myles Garrett and the way forward for the Browns as we continue after this on WGR.
Four Nations final is tonight as the United States take on Canada. Good news for the United States. Head coach Mike Sullivan did confirm this morning that everyone, minus Charlie McAvoy, will be available for tonight, but would not divulge the actual lineup for this evening. That, though, does mean with everyone available that Sabres forward Tage Thompson will not play this evening. For Canada, lineup news for them, Seth Jarvis goes into the lineup and will replace Travis Konechny. Puck drop for this evening just after 8 o'clock and will be on ESPN. Former Bills guard John Feliciano announced his retirement today. Feliciano was with the Bills from 2019 to 2021. He's been in the league since 2015. The Saints have their next offensive coordinator. Kellen Moore brings over Eagles quarterback coach Doug Nussmeier. And staying with the Eagles, center Cam Jurgens underwent a back procedure earlier this week. Full recovery is expected by July, thus not hurting his chances to be able to start for training camp. And the Yankees, they have announced a 2-year contract extension for Aaron Boone. Also have a reminder, this week is your last chance to go to Italy with Sal. Don't miss out. Go to WGR550.com and click under Top Stories or call Travel Brilliant at 716-417-7824. Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Treated like second-class candy.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Oh,
There's a
you don't
fantasy
understand why a
team
candy that is basically toothpaste wrapped up in stale chocolate is treated like a second-class candy. All right, I get it. It's a good, valid question.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Is there time to change? You know, the three teams I've drafted this year, second-class candy is pretty good.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Happy to have you with us on yet another snowy, freezing, cold, awful Thursday afternoon in Western New York. Yeah, boy, you really have a way with words. Thank you. I appreciate that. Joining us now, I am the Bulldog, by the way. Mike is away on vacation this week, hopefully somewhere where it's not freezing and awful and always snowing. Joining us on the West Her Hotline right now is Spencer German. He covers the Cleveland Browns, host of the Locked On Browns podcast, and also a host at our Cleveland Odyssey station, 92.3 The Fan. Spencer, I want to lead off with this question, and if it's a quick no, I understand and we'll move on. But I'm curious if a dude who covers the NFL team in Cleveland, a city without an NHL team, is at all interested in this Four Nations face-off, because it's really captured our imaginations here in Buffalo. That's a tough way for this to begin. We already lost him. We got to try to get him back here. We're hoping to get some info on how the Browns are doing here with in the face of Myles Garrett trade requests and, of course, the Deshaun Watson situation ongoing. I don't know. Maybe that was my answer on whether this dude cares at all about the Four Nations face-off. That the phone went dead as soon as we tried to do it. I mean, you know, things happen. That's how it goes sometimes. Glad to have you with us, as I said here, and there will be. Oh, we got him now on line one. All right, yeah, Spencer, how are you? We lost you there for a second. How are you? Oh, was that me? I don't think I did that. You know, maybe this was a terrible idea. Maybe we should just keep talking to hockey fans about the Four Nations face-off game tonight. I mean, that's it's an alternative anyway. Now I think we'll get it together here. Just having some malfunctioning equipment, and we'll figure it out and get to it here as we go. No joke on what it's like outside, man. Like, it is just all kinds of harsh out there. All right, we're going to take three strikes and you're out. You going to punch them up? I'm not touching anything. Spencer, are you there?
Can you guys hear me?
I got you, man. Yes, we hear you.
I thought I was part of a bit for a second.
Yeah, I know. Right. I was joking around. I mean, I let out of you heard me lead you in with, like, you cover the Browns in Cleveland, a city without an NHL team. Does anybody there give a crap about the Four Nations face-off? And then the line went dead. And I thought, okay, maybe I should just keep talking about the Four Nations face-off. It's a sign. I don't know. Do you have an answer to that? Are you paying attention to this at all?
Yeah, so I think the first time around I was trying to answer. I said I don't know if I can speak for all of Cleveland, but I said I'm certainly interested, especially like we kind of have the opposite here in Cleveland with an NBA team, and the way that everyone was talking about the NBA All-Star break.
Right.
A lot of the conversation centered around like, look what the NHL is doing and how into it everybody seems to be versus what the NBA did this past weekend, and everyone's talking about how terrible it was and maybe should they just scrap the whole thing. People are even throwing out like should they do like a USA versus the world sort of setup for the NBA All-Star game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's kind of interesting that this has kind of dominated the conversation even in markets that don't have a professional NHL team. But I'm certainly going to be tuned in tonight. I think anytime you put American pride on the line, people will get excited.
Yeah, the NHL has been down that road. Team North America, Team Europe, Team World, like they've done that with their All-Star games, and they're always a disaster. And I hope they never go back to having All-Star games. Not that they can do this every year, but even every other year, I think would certainly suffice with how it's going. Well, anyway, Spencer, we certainly did not get you on for your reaction to the Four Nations face-off, although I'm happy you were able to play along and hope you enjoy the game tonight. How much of a blindside is the Myles Garrett trade request to the Browns organization?
So my understanding is it wasn't a surprise to the organization. I think more so it was the fan base getting caught off guard, 2 weeks back when he dropped the kind of press release version of his declaration on social media or through like the NFL Network guys and all that. So I think the fan base was a little caught off guard, but even the fan base I think had some warning signs because Myles had kind of talked at the end of the year about how if the Browns' vision for the team doesn't align with what he wants, he would consider playing elsewhere because at this point in his career, he wants to win. He's 29, getting to that age 30 where things kind of can fluctuate for a player and you can start to drop off a little bit. And I think it makes sense that he's trying to prioritize that. But yeah, like as much as the fan base maybe didn't necessarily expect it to lead into Super Bowl week a couple weeks back. From my understanding, the team was already aware that he was kind of asking to be traded a couple weeks advance of that moment.
You know what really stood out to me about that press release, and I'm glad you referenced that, was his throwing the GM Andrew Barry's words back at him in the press release, the Cleveland to Canton phrasing that I think Barry used during Super Bowl week, or if maybe it was before that, talking about Myles Garrett. And to have that in the press release felt like, really a shot.
Yeah, and you bring it up like he actually said those comments initially. I think he maybe reiterated them at the Senior Bowl, but he initially said them at his end of the season press conference.
Okay,
so
thank you.
That was like early January. So not only did this was like Myles Garrett sitting on this for a while and kind of just unleashing it at that moment of like, man, you said this almost a month ago, and it's not what I want. We obviously all took note of that here in Cleveland as well. I don't know. It's interesting because a couple weeks before the season ended, Myles was asked about, the regime and having, like, if they're still around, because Jimmy Haslam was asked so much during the season about, do you still have confidence in Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Barry? Is there any worry that they're going to get fired? And he basically downplayed it, and he kept on telling everybody he could, no, I still believe in these guys, like, I'm not firing them. And so I thought that was interesting because Myles, you bring that up to Myles, and his reaction was kind of like, yeah, as long as these guys are here, like, I feel pretty good about the way things are going. And so something obviously changed for him between, I guess, those comments and kind of finding out, like, yeah, Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Barry are still going to be the ones driving this bus, and the end of the season when he maybe was given this plan of what the Browns are going to do. And that's the hardest thing is, like, I don't know what they told him. Like, we don't know what the plan that they presented him with was. I would imagine they didn't, like, promise him, hey, we're going to draft a rookie at number 2 because they're still doing evaluations on these guys. Mm-hmm. But, like, maybe they said, hey, it's a veteran, and he felt like, well, the veteran options aren't that great, so I want out. So I think there's still some of this to unfold, and I still kind of wonder if there's a way to get Myles back on board if you get a certain quarterback or if, you draft the right quarterback that maybe he's into, and maybe that's pie in the sky. But right now the Browns are sort of not budging, and I also don't think it really matters anyway because I don't think they can really move him until after June 1st regardless.
How much of a chance do you think there is that all of this is just a ploy to become the highest paid non-quarterback in the league? Like, does he just want a new contract from the Browns? I mean, it seems like a bit of an overreaction if that's the case, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, I would put that. I'd say it's very slim, like maybe like 2%. And I think we've exhausted that part of the conversation. I think a lot here in Cleveland, just because, he kind of had. If that's all it was going to be, I think he made his point at the end of the season, like I alluded to, where when he came out and said, it's a possibility that I'll play somewhere else, and sort of like said that for the first time, and wasn't necessarily fully committed to just like staying with the organization going forward. That's the moment I think where you just kind of like leave that, you let that marinate, and the organization says like, okay, we're going to pay you, and Andrew Berry's indicated that he wants to pay Myles Garrett. So I definitely don't think it's that, like him escalating it to the point where, like you said, sort of took the shot at Andrew Berry, had the public press release, went on Radio Row, was talking about why he was doing this. That felt like more than just, hey, I want to get paid. This feels like him trying to sort of control his own destiny in a way, similar to what we kind of see in the NBA, where guys get to sort of dictate what they do and where they go.
Spencer German covers the Cleveland Browns for 92.3 The Fan, our Odyssey station in. I say ours like we own these places, Spencer. I don't know. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely not in that group. Anyway, he's on the Western Hotline with us. So how urgent is it for the Browns to get this done? You mentioned June 1st. I mean, transactions can take place and be designated as June 1st. We've seen that with other trades in the league with big-ticket players. What's the realistic chances that the Browns do this? Because the cap ramifications, I mean, there's $36 million in dead money if I've interpreted all that right. I mean, that's a lot considering what they've got on the hook for a quarterback who's probably not likely ever to play for them again.
Yeah. I mean, the money part of it's the biggest thing. Andrew Berry has been sort of in the ilk of, this is the only thing I guess he really brought with him from his time with Howie Roseman, but similar to Howie Roseman, he's been really good about like manipulating contracts every year to sort of kick the can down the road, use those void years. It is a practice that the Eagles have done really well as well. And so he knows how to do that, and he certainly could create enough space that maybe they could eat some of that money now and feel pretty good about it. But the problem is $36 million in dead cap money is like not it's a pretty exuberant fee and cost that I don't necessarily think the Browns are like ready to eat right now. So that's why I bring up June 1st, because as you guys know, like if you trade him after that point, then you can sort of split that payment into 2 years versus like all of it coming out of the cap immediately. So I think that really does complicate things, because Barry's been pretty meticulous about, how much money he's taking off certain contracts in a year, how much dead money he's willing to take on in a given year, and their dead money fees this year are already like $39 million, something around there. So I don't know if they want to add like a lot more to that. As with somebody like Myles, even the Deshaun contract comes to mind, which they're probably going to restructure here in the next week or so when they get ready for free agency. So they have to be mindful of those things, and I don't know that they're ready to eat that money just yet. And I think they kind of envisioned, well, hey, we'll give him a contract extension, and that'll sort of balance things out as the years kind of go on, because that money would just get added to later years of his contract. But now, if he really wants out, you got to think about doing the contract in a way that would leave a potential future team taking on more of the financial burden than obviously what the Browns would be taking on.
Right. What kind of player are we talking about at this stage of his career? I know he's just a year removed, so maybe this is a stupid question, from being the Defensive Player of the Year. But where is he on his career timeline? Like, do Browns fans feel like maybe you're getting out at a good time because he's nearing 30, or is this like a devastating blow because he's still one of the best defensive players in the league?
I would say it's probably more so the latter for a lot of fans. Like I think a lot of fans understand where he's coming from with the trade request. I also think though, like they hate that his so far the prime years of his career have been wasted. So I think it's more of like that devastated part of it. But yeah, I mean, I haven't watched Myles. I didn't watch Myles at all this year and feel like there was a drop off. There were some injury concerns this year with his foot. He was having a foot issue pretty early on in the season, but as you can tell, he made it through the rest of the year, and it ended up kind of getting a little bit, I guess, or less. It became less of a problem as the year went on. And so I guess that's the biggest thing with him is, do those injuries start to pile up as he gets to the age of 30 and he gets later in his career, and does something bad actually happen? Because to this point, he's never had like any really serious debilitating injuries that have cost him major, stretches of seasons. But to me, he's still playing at a high level. He's worth every penny for a team that's willing to give up what it's going to take to get him. And, I think you take that chance because he still right now is in the prime of his career. And could there be a drop-off at some point? Sure. But Miles also is kind of one of like those different breed type players. Like he truly is like a freak of nature athlete where I think he can probably prolong his career a little longer than most guys that play his position just because of how he's kind of built and the athlete that he is.
We've been kind of stumbling around here in Buffalo, pondering what it might take to pry him loose from Cleveland. Obviously, I would expect them to, take the best offer they can get and extract every ounce of assets coming back the other way. I imagine you guys are thinking even and talking even more about it. What's your feeling on what it could take to get Myles Garrett out of Cleveland, Spencer?
Yeah, I think the starting price has to be 2 first-rounders, which is, kind of the – Andrew Berry mentioned that at the Senior Bowl, like I wouldn't trade him for 2 first-round picks. And it kind of felt like to me, now that after we had the context of him requesting a trade, that kind of felt like him signaling the teams like, that's the starting point, right? Like,
right.
It has to be more than 2 first-round picks if we're going to trade Myles Garrett. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But I think that's where the conversation starts. Now, theoretically, if a team has a player that is maybe seen as valuable enough to maybe warrant a first-round pick or of that caliber, maybe you throw in a player that the Browns get back in return at the same position or elsewhere, and you throw a first-round pick in with that. I think like we're tossing around these different ideas of as we hear more and more out of L.A. about how Matt Stafford's return to the Rams centers around a contract extension. Like maybe they don't kind of come to terms and they can't figure something out. And if he becomes available, maybe the Browns are willing to take just 1 first if they're going to get Matt Stafford back in return and feel like they have some stability at quarterback. So, but I think if you're talking just like base level, a team's trying to get an offer together and send it out to the Browns, I think it has to start with 2 first-round picks. And then, what else gets added into the deal kind of goes from there, whether it's, additional picks, maybe a second-rounder in there, whether it's – and I think, like, if you look back at the Khalil Mack deal, which I forget all the details of that one, but I think there was 2 firsts involved and then a couple other picks involved. I think that was maybe a sort of a solid reference point that the Browns are probably going to look at as well.
Yeah, I would think for sure. Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland on the Western Hotline with us for just a couple of more minutes here. My idea, and it's very pie in the sky, I admit, because it's very convenient for the Bills, and how often do things work out like that? I'm fine. Draft picks, fine. This year's first, next year's first. Throw in something else. I'm thinking about Gregory Rousseau, who's a defensive end set to play on his 5th-year option. Like, he's due a new contract. Maybe that's not appealing at all to the Browns. It's the same position. It's a good player. It's not a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. But, like, from my perspective, from what I would think the Bills' perspective would be, if I'm acquiring Myles Garrett, I'm not going to do a contract for Gregory Rousseau. I'm going to try to ship him out of here, maybe even in a corresponding move. Doesn't even have to necessarily be Cleveland, but like basically Garrett replaces Rousseau. He's due probably close to $25 million in a new contract anyway. $22 to $25 million is what Spot Track has his estimated value at anyway on a new deal. So that for me, that would be like perfect. I don't know if that sounds like a horrible idea to the Cleveland Browns, though.
I don't hate the idea of Rousseau. I've in watching the Bills when I can, like I'm familiar with his game. I know he had like the 8 sacks last year. I think he's kind of gotten gradually better and better as each year's gone on. And I think from the Browns' perspective, like if you're trying to think about rebuilding your defensive line a little bit here, and Myles is truly going to be gone, you can probably start with somebody like Rousseau on one side. And then this draft class is super deep along the defensive line in general. So maybe you can get a player, especially picking number 2, if they don't go quarterback, which I think is kind of the prevailing thought is that they will. But if they don't, maybe they take Abdul Carter, right? And then maybe that sets you up with like a revamped defensive line pretty quickly here. So I don't hate that idea. It would just kind of be about like what the package of picks looks like around Rousseau, because like you said, he's not a Myles Garrett caliber type of player, but he's a pretty good player. There's the 5th-year option. You can decide whether or not you're going to pay him or not after that. But I've seen that idea thrown around a little bit. I don't hate it for the Browns. I think it would just come down to like what the picks attached to it would look like. But yeah, like I think there's
there's something there for the Browns because it allows them to start sort of planning on life without Myles Garrett on the defensive line.
Right. What is the plan, you think? You mentioned the drafting. Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward at the top. I mean, I don't know. Those might be the only two guys worthy of that high a pick, but there are other intriguing quarterbacks. Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe maybe, as well as you get further into the draft. What do you think the plan will be? And is Watson Watson's never playing for them again, right?
I would say no. I think that's pretty the consensus seems to be that ship has sailed, and it's probably for the best anyway. Like I think if the Browns could get out from under his contract right now, they probably would try. But you don't need me to sit here for another 20 minutes and tell you how much of a disaster that whole thing's been from like a PR standpoint
right.
and just on the field. But they've already sort of signaled, I think, with the decisions they made this offseason, moving on from Ken Dorsey, who you guys are familiar with, going back to Stefanski's offense, like they are pivoting away from the Deshaun Watson business and trying to sort of revamp this thing and find a different quarterback. I've kind of come to the belief that I think they will take a quarterback at 2. But what's interesting is like there's been so much smoke linking them to Shedeur Sanders. And that hasn't really been, like, since Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski have taken over, there hasn't been a lot of, like, leaks or public acknowledgement of, like, any one player this time of year that they're maybe interested in. It's kind of been, like, more broadly they've talked about guys. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of find it interesting that there's been so much noise connecting the Browns to Shedeur Sanders to the point where I almost wonder if, like, they're trying to manipulate the board a little bit and maybe convince a team like the Giants to trade up to get him so that they can maybe get Cam Ward or something like that. Or maybe they have, feelings about a different guy like Jackson Dart and they want the Giants to trade with them and then they can get some more picks. So I'm kind of fascinated to see how this plays out, especially starting next week at the Combine. What Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski sort of say about where they're at with things and the quarterback positions. But I sitting here today, I'm becoming more and more convinced that they are going to take a quarterback.
It's so interesting because just 2 years ago, the season before last, with with Watson underperforming and hurt, you end up with like a revolving door at quarterback, and this team made the playoffs. So it's not like again, like the Garrett trade demand throws a big wrench in that. But like if you could convince him to stay, it doesn't feel like that team has to be that far off if they get quarterback right. Like, are people thinking about what Jaden Daniels did in Washington last year and hoping? I mean, I don't think any of these guys are rating as that level of prospect, but who knows? It's the draft. The Browns are just in a very interesting place because it doesn't seem like the rest of the roster maybe would need to start over, but yet the Watson thing and now the Garrett thing, they're kind of really stuck.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that would probably tell you the roster stinks and we overrated it and all these different things. But I'm more in the boat of you where I see a team that made the playoffs with a kind of less advantageous quarterback situation 2 years ago, just a carousel of guys playing. And I think you're right. Like if you land the right guy, you could at least steady that ship enough to be a playoff contender. And to your point on Jaden Daniels, like I've talked about that a bunch. I don't necessarily think any of these guys are Jaden Daniels, and I think it's unrealistic to like go into it and be like, yeah, we just drafted the next Jaden Daniels if we take Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. But like you said, you never know, and there's always like a level of unknown with these guys. There's always a level of like you can't account for everything, like how they're going to process the game, how they're going to get acclimated to the game. Those things matter. And it was funny hearing Miles on Radio Row talk about the idea of playing with Jaden Daniels and how that's somebody he'd be open to playing with, because it kind of hit me like, do you think a year ago this time, as much as people were high on Jaden Daniels, they thought he was going to be taking Washington to the NFC Championship game a year ago? Like, what if the Browns do identify the guy that they think is the perfect fit, and if it's Shedeur or Cam, a year from now, we could be talking about one of those guys as like the next great quarterback. So there's always the possibility, and so that's why I said like I wonder if you have like David Njoku and other players going out and saying, like, we really are just a quarterback away. If we get that position right, we'll be okay. And I do think there's some truth in that. Like, I don't know how I feel like the Browns, with the top two guys in this draft, like, are for sure going to get that guy. But I think you got to take the chance to try to land that guy because, it's either that or you rebuild. And I just don't think that this roster, this coaching staff and GM, like, I don't think anybody's in a mode right now where they're like, let's blow it up and start over. So if you're trying to win, I think your best bet is take a rookie and hope that you have the right people in place to develop him and get him to a point where he's then talked about as one of the best in the league.
How much urgency do you sense that there is to get this thing done? Like, is it something that needs to be done by free agency opening, by the draft, or do you think it could go on into the summer?
I don't think there's a ton of urgency right now. I think that changes once we get into off-season program stuff, OTAs, and Miles probably doesn't show up. I think that maybe we'll start changing the math on that a little bit. And I'm still sort of using that June 1st, deadline as kind of like my barometer of like when I feel like something might actually get done, just because the money involved in it here. So I don't think it's like something the Browns are like really pushing to do, unless somebody blows them away with an offer, and then I guess then they change their mind. But Andrew Berry's been pretty adamant to this point that he's not trading him. But we'll see what next week brings, because the combine could always be an opportunity to like open the market up a little bit more, and people start talking and getting a sense of like what actually they could get for Miles, and then maybe the getting a deal done moves a little bit quicker.
Spencer, really enjoyed our first visit ever. Hope to do it again sometime. I'm glad we stuck with it after the rocky start there. Really enjoyed the conversation, man.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do it anytime, and I'm always happy to come on in Western New York, where I'm from. So appreciate you guys.
Oh, awesome. Where part of town are you from? I'm sorry I didn't know that.
So I'm actually from Rochester.
All right.
My parents still live in Irondequoit. So I was on the Bills beat for a few years, so I'm plenty familiar with the drive back and forth, and I obviously listened to you guys a ton when I was living up there. So.
All right. Now I feel old, but awesome, Spencer. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right.
Yeah, appreciate you guys.
Spencer German, 92.3 The Fan, covers the Browns at the lowdown on Myles Garrett and the way forward for them. All right. There. Football quota filled. We'll see. I might have a few more things to say about what we talked about with Spencer, but I'm itching and dying to get back into talking about the Four Nations face-off. So maybe just a couple of footnotes on football and on the Bills, and maybe, the pursuit of a Myles Garrett trade. We can talk about that for a little bit, but if you're ready to get back into hockey, feel free to get in here at 803-0550, and we'll tee that up again. Four Nations face-off final tonight, Team USA, Team Canada. I am the Bulldog. Mike Schopp is away this week. Thanks for listening to WGR.
Take on Canada, and good news for the U.S. Head coach Mike Sullivan confirmed this morning that everyone, minus of course Charlie McAvoy, will be available for tonight, but would not divulge the actual starting lineup. With no one else, though, being out, this does mean Sabres forward Tage Thompson will not play in tonight's matchup. For Canada, some lineup news. Seth Jarvis goes into the lineup to replace Travis Konecny. Puck drop for this evening just after 8 o'clock and will be over on ESPN. Former Bills guard John Feliciano announced his retirement today. Feliciano was with the Bills from 2019 to 2021. He's also been in the league since 2015. And the Saints reportedly have their next offensive coordinator. Kellen Moore goes to the Eagles and brings over their QB coach, Doug Nussmeier. And then the Yankees, they have announced a 2-year contract extension for manager Aaron Boone. And, of course, a reminder, this week is your last chance to go to Italy with Sal. Don't miss out. Go to WGR550.com and click under Top Stories or call Travel Brilliant at 716-417-7824. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
You're taking all the best players that are used to playing all the top ice time and all the top positions, and power play guys become penalty killing guys, and it's not about the individual anymore. It's just about playing for your country. And for that moment in time, that couple weeks, you've got to give the players a lot of credit for buying in, especially as a coaching staff, into what you're trying to sell and the amount of work that's got to go into that short period of time to win a championship.
That's Sabres head coach Lindy Ruff talking with the guys in the morning yesterday. That's Sneaky Joe and Jeremy White. Lindy or some other coaching staff member, often Seth Abbott, make a weekly appearance. Anyway, Lindy talking about the players and the credit they deserve for diving headfirst into all that the Four Nations face-off has entailed. It's been a tremendous success for the NHL, and that credit goes entirely to the players, I think, like Lindy is saying. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Because if you didn't have the buy-in, like they ultimately control it. And their level of passion for this tournament right from the start, first game of the tournament, it was evident. I know for me, it's funny, I've mentioned this a couple of times as we were getting through the round robin games last week. First game on Wednesday night, I'm like, I'm excited, but I was not at edge of your seat, peak. Wow, this is going to be incredible. I can't wait to see what it looks like. I was like, maybe we'll ease into it and see what we get, and hopefully by today, when the championship game is happening, we get the right matchup, Canada-US. It's really firing, and the guys are really into it. But man, right from the start of that first Canada-Sweden game, followed up by Finland and US the next night, and certainly capped off on Saturday evening by Team USA and Team Canada playing their round robin game, it was evident. Like, these guys are in to this. And I went right from a 5 or 6 on the meter right to a 10. As soon as the game started, I was already introduced Mario Lemieux and the anthems and the whole thing for that first game. Again, the round robin game that led this thing off between Sweden and Canada. And I'm like, I'm starving for this. And it has fully met and exceeded expectations. So credit to the players for getting into it like they did. 803-0550, as I said, is the number. You want to just keep kicking this around, the hockey. I'm totally fine just taking calls on it. It's a really cool moment for, I think, Sabres fans, Buffalo hockey fans, to sort of get re-energized by the sport. I mean, the Sabres have been a very tough road here for a long, long time. And it's hard. I got to go back to 2011. There have been other games, I know, the playoff races and, the Florida game from a couple of years ago when they seemed like they were breaking through and they missed the playoffs only by a point. There were games that mattered then that I'm sure I was excited for, but I don't think to this level. really, for me. I got to go back to 2011 for the playoffs against Philly, 2010 for the Olympics with Ryan Miller playing for Team USA. That's the last time I felt anything close to what this tournament has brought forth. And you know, it's a reminder, I think. So it can be a little bittersweet. I don't want to bum you out by making this point, but seeing Eichel, seeing Reinhart, and feeling something about hockey that maybe you haven't been feeling in a long time because the Sabres have just been so exhaustively terrible for so long, that can cut both ways. It make you more bitter and angry at the state of things here, because this is just such a tremendous hockey market, and I just feel like we're all just sort of sleepwalking through it at this point. And look, I'm not judging you harshly for that. I'm the same way. I can't find my way to get excited for the trade deadline or like anything. It's just, let me know when you're actually going to mean something again, is how I think a lot of fans, including me, feel about the Sabres right now. And this tournament can serve as a bit of a mirror to like reflect that back at you. Like, I miss this. I used to have this feeling often, and it's just absent. I mean, it just is. We'll get to calls here in 1 second. One tweet response that I got today that I really liked, because it reminded me of what I felt was maybe the best time I've had in the building, at a hockey game anyways, in a very, very long time. One person responded to my Twitter poll, because I said, when's the last time you were excited? And I had 4 choices. One of them was not a regular season game from 2 years ago against Minnesota. Go figure, right? But there was a game. It was still during football season. Someone sent me the box for it, but I don't have a second here to go look it up and get it again. There was a Minnesota home game on a Saturday night. I've talked about this game before. I was in the building, and it was an incredible atmosphere. It was sold out. It was like one of these high school hockey nights. I know my son Owen was there helping coach a Nichols team that was taking part in like a shootout or something during the intermissions. And so we got tickets through his school, where he's been working as a coach since he retired from hockey. And so we went, and the atmosphere was electric. It was a great game. It was a high-scoring game. The Sabres ended up winning in overtime, and walking out of there, fans were singing the Shout song down Washington Street, and it was a reminder of what it can feel like in there. But I didn't walk in the building that night thinking I was going to get any kind of a reminder of what could be. It just was organically a night that turned into a really spectacular night for hockey in Buffalo. But there was no anticipation. I was just going to a regular season Saturday night game against Minnesota. I mean, there was no run up to it. It was like, okay, fine, I'll go to the game with you. You got 2 tickets, fine. Like, that was it. It ended up being a great night, but the run-up, like the buzz, there was no buzz. This thing tonight, man, and this whole tournament has had it in spades. Paul is first up this segment. Hi, Paul. Thanks for calling. You're on WGR.
Amen, Bulldog. You are right on point. The confluence of events that no one could have anticipated when this tournament was conceived. Now, you could have anticipated the wait we've all had to see best on best, but no one could have anticipated the political drama and just how much these guys are giving. Charlie McAvoy is now a U.S. hockey legend. Sidney Crosby, who it has been said walks on water, I said on a call to the morning show a couple of days ago, he etched his face in stone on the Mount Rushmore of hockey history. He is an all-timer because of what he's doing in this tournament, and I cannot wait for tonight. To a specific lineup point, I got to see Chris Kreider in there tonight for USA. I look to what he did again in Game 6 against Carolina, scoring a natural hat trick for a Ranger team that was probably, with the exception of goaltender, out-talented by the Carolina Hurricanes, but found a way to grit through that series because of Chris Kreider. Him and Jake Gensel are guys who show up in games like this, and I need him in the lineup over a Brock Nelson. Love to get your thought on that.
All right, Paul, I hear you, man. I would not be against that. I like the way you set that up. And Kreider got in. That was the game on Monday, right? I think Kreider played and scored right off the hop there, and they ended up losing the game. But I'm curious to see what the lineup looks like. Bummer for Thompson that everyone who's eligible to play appears to be at least healthy enough to play, because he went there, I guess, in case someone was still sick or there was an injury or whatever, and doesn't look like he's going to get in the lineup. But, the coach did not commit to, how they started the tournament, and too, Kreider was not in that first lineup and didn't play on Saturday night against Toronto, against Canada, but did get in because they were so thin. I wonder what it'll look like when we get to closer to game time and we get a look at the lineups. But I don't know. Maybe I'd be surprised if they did it, but I wouldn't be against it if they switched Kreider in for Nelson. The rest of it to me is locked in. Right? Just looking at a guy that's as talented as Kyle Connor being on what is ostensibly a fourth line is kind of incredible. The talent on these teams is just remarkable. More of your calls on the way. Hold on if you're there. I'll get to you right after a break here. We've got Joe Yurden coming up at the top of the hour, but time to squeeze in a couple more after we take a quick time out here. I am the Bulldog, and you're listening to WGR.
This hour of Schopp and the Bulldog is being brought to you by Celino Law. Car crash? Call Celino.
Hanging out here on a freezing cold Thursday. Go figure. I mean, it is February. 803-0550 is the number. I am the Bulldog. Mike Schopp has been off this week, and that will continue through tomorrow when hopefully we have a whale of a hockey game to look back on. We've been talking mostly today about the Four Nations Face-Off Final, which goes tonight a little after 8 o'clock on ESPN, Canada versus USA. The tournament has been a rousing success, and hopefully tonight does not take any air out of that, because it has just been tremendous. And I say that about everything. Like, Saturday was obviously a high point with Canada and USA playing, and of course they're meeting again tonight. To me, all the games have been competitive and passionate and just excellent hockey across the board. Jay is first up this segment. Hi, Jay. Thank you for calling. You're on the air here on WGR.
Hey, Chris. Hey, once again, what a yeoman's job you've done this week, my friend. As always, you bring it. Real quick, I want to give a huge shout-out to the fans who I think have brought this tournament to a level I didn't expect. I know we're up against it, so I'll be quick. I've been going through a lot of stuff personally the last few weeks, starting a new job and everything else, and I'll be honest, I didn't pay too much attention to this tournament. But when I saw the opening night and Mario freaking Lemieux come onto the ice, and that crowd erupts, it brought up a fire in me that I haven't had in a long time. It's akin to how I felt watching the Red Wings and the Avalanche play in the mid-'90s, where these guys just hated each other. And that's what I see happening tonight, Chris. We've got this political drama we all know about, and I don't want to get political on this, but I cannot wait to see what kind of legendary moment we have tonight. Will it be McDavid? Will it be Connor Hellebuck standing on his head? I don't know. Are they going to boo the national anthems on both sides and we won't be able to hear the singers? I don't know. But I am so ready for this, my friend. And let's get it off and let's get it going.
All right, Jay. Appreciate it. Appreciate the compliment as well. Man, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't know if I said it exactly right going into the first game of the tournament, but like you, Mario introduced the anthems. I don't really care about the booing. I mean, I obviously don't love it, and I don't know how politically charged everything is here. I mean, I just, it's hard to take the president referring to Canada as a potential 51st state seriously at all. Maybe I should be. I don't know. I can't even really wrap my brain around it. So, like, that's just sort of, that's over there. I certainly understand the booing. I hope there isn't any of it tonight on either side, as frankly, the U.S. booing the Canadian anthem would be what? A reaction to you being mad at us and now I'm mad at you, and what are we, in third grade? I mean, I think you can understand whether you agree or not with some of the politics being represented right now. You can understand why a Canadian would take issue with the president of this country referring to them as a potential 51st state. So booing them because they took offense to that just seems like reactionary and kind of stupid to me. But that's just me. I don't know. So I don't feel so much like politically charged myself watching this. I just think the hockey's excellent. I can't speak for the players. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the Team USA guys got extra jacked up by the fact that they got booed. The anthem got booed. I don't know. I mean, I think that would work on almost anyone on some level. But it wouldn't have been a surprise, I don't think. It's been happening in NHL arenas across Canada prior to this tournament. So I doubt they were caught by surprise by it. But I'm not denying it could have lent something to the juice they had going into the game. But I think Canada-USA playing in Switzerland, I think these guys would have been jacked and ready to go. Myself, that's just me. Thank you for the call. Appreciate it. We'll take a timeout here, get the top of the hour update. And Joe Yerdon, Bleacher Report, longtime NHL beat guy, going to join us. He was in Montreal for that portion of this tournament, and we'll touch base with Joe about this huge game in hockey tonight. That is right after this. Paul Hamilton about an hour from now as well. I am the Bulldog, and you're listening to WGR.
Caller
Just about 3 hours away from the start of the Four Nations final in Boston as the United States takes on Canada. Good news tonight for the U.S. Head coach Mike Sullivan confirmed this morning that everyone minus Charlie McAvoy will be available for tonight, but would not divulge the starting lineup. With no one else, though, out, this does mean Sabres forward Tage Thompson will not play this evening. And then for Canada, their lineup news, Seth Jarvis will go into the lineup, replacing Travis Konechny. Again, puck drop 4 this evening, just after 8 o'clock, and will be on ESPN. Former Bills guard John Feliciano announced his retirement today. Feliciano was with the Bills from 2019 to 2021. He's been in the league since 2015. The Saints reportedly have their new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, bringing over Eagles quarterback coach Doug Nussmeier, and then staying with the Eagles center Cam Jurgens underwent a back procedure earlier this week. A full recovery is expected by July, thus not holding him out for the start of training camp. And the Yankees, they have announced a 2-year contract extension for manager Aaron Boone. Then, of course, a reminder, this week is your last chance to go to Italy with Sal. Don't miss out. Go to WGR550.com and click under Top Stories or call Travel Brilliant at 716-417-7824. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Have you with us here on a Thursday afternoon. I am the Bulldog. Mike Schopp has been away this week, and that will continue into tomorrow. We've had, for a downtime, man, this Four Nations face-off has really, really filled in the gaps for us. Much more than that, even. It's been a highlight of the sports year so far. I know it's early, but man, this thing has really captured, I think, the general sports audience. Of course, the hockey fans are loving it as well. Spent a lot of today so far talking about it, and we'll continue with that as we bring in our buddy Joe Yurden, covers the NHL for Bleacher Report, as a well-traveled, experienced reporter is how we refer. I don't know. Is that okay, Joe? Is that how we're referring to you these days? Grizzled veteran?
Grizzled veteran is good because yeah, I mean, why not, man? It's been like 15, I can't believe it's been like 15 years doing this professionally. It's crazy.
That is insane. Yeah, I mean, it's closing in on 30 for me. So I don't even want to. Let's change the subject right now.
Yes.
I know you were in Montreal, and so got to see firsthand what was happening there. Can I ask you if you can honestly tell us like what your expectations were going in, and then maybe if they were a little bit low? Like I was optimistic this would be good, but I wasn't expecting it to go right to 11 last Wednesday night when Canada and Sweden faced off. But by the time they dropped the puck in that game, I was just gripped, thinking this is going to be fantastic. Montreal can have that effect on you, the ceremony and Mario and the anthems and all that. What did you think going in, and what do you think now?
I was optimistic as well because when these guys you play for country, it's a different story. Because I know a lot of fans were, I don't know, maybe not too hyped, thinking like, oh, it's the place in the All-Star game. These guys are going to treat it like an All-Star game. They won't go hard. They won't do that, this, that, the other thing. And I'm like, I don't know, man. You put on the jersey for your country, and the mindset changes. Because you're thinking, if I come out here and I'm like, going at half speed and I'm letting up on, I got a chance to hit somebody and I let up and I'm just kind of, not going for it like that, doesn't get anybody into it. Doesn't get anybody fired up. But, you start that tournament in Montreal and like the fans are going to be at 11 to start with, and you get Canada, Sweden to be your opening game and you have that kind of opening ceremony and you're like, okay, there is no shot these guys are gonna pull up the brakes and say like, all right, let's just go out and have fun. There was no way that was going to happen. And, yeah, did not disappoint one bit. That was, even for the games that Canada didn't play in, like, the crowds were great. I mean, I thought, I was kind of nervous about the Canada or the Sweden-Finland game, but no, like 18,000, 19,000 fans there, still very much into it. And what a great game that. I mean, geez, we got one stinker game, and it was just because the U.S. put it on Finland, and even that game wasn't a blowout to the third period. So, I mean, I don't know, you can't really ask for more than what we've gotten here. And, honestly, starting in Montreal was probably the smartest move you could do because it sets the tone. It sets the tone for everything.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the ceremony and all of it, like nobody does that better than Montreal. And so, rolling Mario out there like they did really worked for me as well. All right, that said, Saturday, did you see 3 fights in 9 seconds? Did you see any fights coming, especially right off the opening draw like we saw basically twice with the Kachuk brothers?
I kind of thought there would be a fight. I didn't expect it opening face-off. And, it helps that this isn't double IHF rules for this tournament.
Right.
Because if it was, that's immediate ejection if you fight. Like, that's ejection and 1 game suspension. So, like, it's what keeps guys from fighting in the Olympics because you don't want to do that. But NHL rules, man, go for it. Go for it. Have fun. And I think and I know some people, geez, a lot of people just don't like fights. I get it. Like, there's the whole, newest generation of fans. Like, fights have been minimized for good reasons. Let's be real. But, for those of us that kind of grew up with a lot of that stuff, the heyday of enforcers and goons and all that was like how I grew up. And, I've got a big soft spot for a lot of those guys. I mean, those guys put a lot on the line. They with their health and everything. But, like, oh, man. Like, you get the first fight, and you're like, okay, get it out of your system. All right. Okay, cool. And then, you see Brady and Sam Bennett go out for the next draw, and you're like, man, I bet they're kicking themselves. They didn't get a shot. Oh, they're fighting. Okay, great. Perfect.
Right.
And then JT Miller goes up and just, two-hander right into Parayko, which maybe not a penalty, but, But then my favorite catch of that video was the shot. You're looking right at Parayko, and he's got his gloves on. He's like, oh, you want to go? Boom, gloves on the ice. Here we go. And it's like, oh, boy, this is crazy. I've never, ever, ever, ever once, and I've covered a couple of Stanley Cup finals, I've never been in a crowd where it was that off the charts. Everybody into it, both teams, all the fans, everybody is like, holy crap, what are we witnessing? This is incredible.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm definitely. I'm older than you. I grew up with that. I remember. I've talked to Rob Ray for years and years and years here, hosting shows with him over his playing career and now as a broadcaster. So yeah, hearty respect for that part of the game. But yeah, there's good reasons why I've sort of lost my taste for it. But Saturday, I didn't know it was an itch I needed scratched, but it totally worked. It just totally worked for me. Joe Yurden, Bleacher Report, covering the NHL and this Four Nations face-off tournament as well, is our guest here on the West Her Hotline. You make a very good point, Joe, I think, mentioning the Olympics on the horizon, because that, maybe I didn't consider that, like this as sort of a tryout for the Olympics. Like if you can perform in this tournament for USA, Canada, Sweden, or Finland, I combined Sweden and Finland into one country. I'm a regular president of the United States here, trying to annex Sweden and Finland together. You're going to try to make the best impression you can because you want to be in the Olympics. You want to be playing for Olympic gold. And so this is sort of a tryout opportunity. So I didn't really consider that going into this.
Yeah. And, I had a chance to talk to Matthew Tkachuk ahead of the Four Nations. And, one of the things I asked him about was, because of course we talked about the Four Nations, but I asked, do you look at this, not that he has, I said, not that you have anything to worry about, but do you look at this as kind of like a tryout for the Olympics? And he's like, I didn't really think of it that way, but he's like, yeah, like you gotta kind of show what you're about. And he's like, you have world championships and you've got things like that to kind of get your name out, kind of get your name out there and prove to them that, like, yeah, hey, I'll play for the country. Because, let's face it, if you're playing in Worlds, that means your team didn't make it to the Stanley Cup playoffs. And you're probably like, boy, nice long summer would be cool too. But, if you take that time out to go play for your country, it's like, okay, this guy means business. All right, this is good. But I mean, the Olympics are next year. I mean, it's next year in Milan. There's not going to be a lot of other opportunities to really show that, hey, I want in on this. I want to be part of this. And it's a good opportunity for these guys to show that they are deadly serious about it. And let's be honest, the roster's probably not going to be a whole lot different for the Olympics. I mean, there's going to be a few spots, and I know we're going to have plenty of debates to come once this is over. Whoever wins, loses, doesn't matter. Plenty of debates about, who is a better fit, who should have been there. I mean, we kind of did these already in the first place, but once the results finish, flesh themselves out, you're like, okay, now we know how this went, what went wrong, what went right. But it's absolutely the time for these guys to show that, hey, like, when you come call, if you want to come call it next year, I'm ready to go, and you've seen how I can do. And that's the huge thing for guys that might be debatably on that borderline. It's so tough to say any of these guys would be on a borderline because they're all incredibly good players. But but if you're like one of those guys in like that fourth line, in and out of the lineup kind of role, you want to show out. You want to show that you mean business.
Yeah, for sure. Joe Yerdon, Bleacher Report on the Western Hotline here on WGR. Four Nations face-off finale tonight, Canada and the USA from Boston. ESPN will have the game on TV for you. So is this, I feel like, Canada, like, is this the best hockey we've ever seen? It's a tough conversation to have because you got to go back so far into history, in particular on the Canadian side. I feel like the biggest difference between, say, 1996 or even 2010 in the gold medal game and any Olympics, the U.S. has star players, high-end players like Matthews and Hughes that to me are close to the best Canadian guys. Back when like Gretzky and Lemieux and Howard-Chuck were on a line playing in Canada Cups, the U.S. or any other country really did not have anything that could be comparable. And I think that gap doesn't really exist anymore. I would still give Canada the nod at the very high end here with McKinnon and McDavid and Makar over, say, Matthews and Jack Hughes and his brother Quinn Hughes, who unfortunately isn't even here. But there's more high-end talent. Even go back to 96, that World Cup of Hockey that the U.S. won in a 3-game series. The gap is just almost non-existent now, I think.
Yeah, it's almost a full flip of a coin between the two teams. And this is to make clear, the absolute highest of the high end is still on Canada's side because, to me, Makar is still the best defenseman in the NHL. Quinn Hughes is right there. It's like Quinn Hughes is like, you can make a case for him over Makar. I mean, they both won the Norris. They're both incredible. And, for McDavid's the best player in the NHL by far. And the next best guy might be his teammate, and he's from Germany. So, but you throw Matthews into that mix. You got Hughes. Everybody in Buffalo, plug your ears for 1 second. You got Jack Eichel, who's having an unbelievable season. So, you've got all these guys up at the top of the level where it's staggering. And I mean, you go back to, I think back to that 96 team, and you think of how good Leach was and how out of his mind Richter played in that tournament in goal. The U.S. has 3 goalies that are better than Mike Richter. Right now on the roster, that's crazy. That is stone cold crazy that you've got that kind of setup. And I mean, granted, you can only play one goalie at a time. I get it, but still, it hammers home how much things have changed in that amount of time. We're talking 30 years now, which, oh man, forget it. But it's incredible to see how the gap is basically non-existent now. And we saw it on Saturday. The U.S. played the way Canada did against the U.S. in 2010. The way Canada played in the Olympics in 2014. They were perfect. Just an absolutely perfect game where
what do? You can't do anything about it. You just have to tip your cap and say, like, hey, listen, they gave it to us, and we got to deal with it.
In goal, I think, I don't know about Swayman for sure, but I would easily take Hellebuck or Ottinger over any of the three Canadian goalies.
Oh, 100%.
And maybe Swayman too, honestly. But he's having kind of a weird, wonky year with the tough start after the contract thing. But it's pretty stunning how, and I know a lot of column inches have been written about the lack of goaltending development in Canada, and I haven't really dug in that far on it. But I mean, the results kind of speak for themselves here with the caliber of player you're talking about on both of these rosters. It's kind of startling that Canada's gone from like Brodeur and Luongo and others to like, okay, Jordan Binnington, go get her done.
Yeah, and the fact that Binnington's gotten the call all along, and especially now tonight, it's because they're like, well, he beat the Bruins in 2019, so he knows how to get it done in Boston. And I'm like, boy, that's, there's stretches, but like,
yeah.
I guess. I mean, if you just need something to run with, I guess that's the way to do it. But I mean, and what's wild is that like if Thatcher Demko wasn't banged up this whole like past year, and he's the guy that gets the call over Swayman, and maybe he's battling Hellebuck for secret because he was brilliant up until he got hurt last year. So I don't think he gets a call over Hellebuck, but I mean, maybe he's minding, he's wearing the hat on the bench, but it's incredible. I got a chance to like write on this. I don't know if it ever got published, but the influence Richter had from '96 and throughout his whole career on goaltending in the U.S. is, I mean, that's all because of that. Because Richter made it flashy and cool, play goal, and it's just that got guys to be like, hey man, like this is fun. You get to wear the cool gear, you get to represent your country, and then who knows, maybe you get to become a folk hero.
Right, yeah. Ryan Miller served that purpose in the Parker House. I can tell you that 100% certainty. I don't know that we take the ride that we took as a family without Miller being, who he was for the Sabres and also, of course, for Team USA. Joe, how are you nervous at all that there's so much attention and so much hype for this game tonight and what Saturday looked like with the fights at the outset and all that, that tonight has trouble meeting the expectations?
I think if you're yes. I think if you're setting the bar at like, well, if they had 3 fights last time, mine's all tonight, right? Like guys jumping the bench to get on the ice, right? That's how this works, isn't it? But I mean, listen, you're talking about, Makar is going to be in for, I believe Makar is going to be in for Canada. I mean, he's
yes.
up to be in there. Obviously the U.S. is banged up. No McAvoy's tough. I don't know if Jake Sanderson's going to, get sucked into get sucked through a warp zone or something and not wind up there so Quinn Hughes plays. But I mean, like that sets the bar for everything to be like, okay, like that was an incredible game, but like tonight's going to be just a game, unless Canada wants to get some get back on U.S. soil, which who knows? Maybe. I don't know if they want to do that.
Yeah, if they had Tom Wilson available as an injury replacement, then I think maybe we'd be onto something. That was fun, by the way, watching, listening to the reaction over the weekend and into early in the week. Like Canada should have had Tom Wilson on their team. He's got 20 goals, and all. It was awesome. I don't root against Canada actively, but when they do lose in a big spot, it's always amazing. The reaction is just you just can't miss it. You got to be there for it.
Yeah, and like just the way the game on Saturday in Montreal played out, it's taken right out of the stereotypical Canada playbook: fights, hit everything in sight, play hard, and intimidate. Like not giving a crap about who you're hitting. I mean, McDavid scores that unbelievable goal that literally no goalie on earth is going to stop. And McAvoy, the next shift, goes out and plasters him. Matthews kind of helps hide that he's coming, but like he goes out and flags them. And I think, guys in Canada do not scare easy, but that's a kind of like, oh, these guys aren't going to stop all game. Okay, well, I guess we're going to have to deal with this because these guys are, and I said this very lovingly watching the Kachucks high-five each other after the fight. They go, these absolute idiots. Look at these guys. Like, just,
right.
Yeah. You know, like they're just like high fiving, and they got they had the mics on them in the box, and they're just going like, you believe that? Holy crap, that was cool. Like all that kind of stuff. I'm like, you absolute bonehead. Like, God love you.
In the best possible way, yeah. Like what just a couple of goofballs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You mentioned McAvoy there, Joe, and maybe the one fly in the ointment. We'll see. Like hockey usually finds its way to undoing the good that it does. And we'll see what ends up on the horizon here and around the next bend with the Olympics and then the World Cup a couple of years after that. But the McAvoy injury, the way it was handled, even there seems to be some question. It looks like the Bruins are maybe mad at USA Hockey for the shot, and that caused the infection and whatever. There is word that McAvoy will be at the game tonight, so he's doing well enough to actually be out in public. But obviously he's not going to play. I just wonder. It's easy for me in Buffalo to not worry about anybody getting hurt in this tournament because even if something happened to Dahlin, it's not like I have a playoff race for him to come home to. But I wonder with a guy like McAvoy and Shea Theodore, with what happened to him in the first game against Sweden for Canada, now he's out until the playoffs for Vegas. I know Crimea River, they'll find a way to use long-term injury replacement money and probably work out great. But still, guys getting hurt in something like this, I could see being a problem for general managers, if not, owners.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of ironic that Theodore's the guy that got hurt for Canada because they sat Alex Pietrangelo out. Like Vegas made that call because they're like, he's coming back from the thing. We're going to keep him out. We're going to keep him out of this because he's dealing with stuff. And people are like, interesting because Pietrangelo's maybe not making that call for himself, so the team doesn't. But and there's Pietrangelo and maybe Doug Armstrong still not getting along from their St. Louis days or whatever. But but then it's, Vegas' other defenseman on Team Canada who goes out, and it's like, well, all right. But, I mean, listen, teams can get upset about it, but, like, everybody signed on for this. Players wanted this. Teams agreed to it. This is just the risk you're going to run with these kinds of tournaments. And, like, and now that we know these guys are going to go all out, stuff can happen. Like, any kind of stuff can happen. The McAvoy thing is just really strange because it's, shoulder injury, and you're like, wow, that stinks. And it's like, yeah, and then he got an infection, and you're like, wait, what? Like, what? What do you mean he got an infection? Like, what's that about? But yeah, I mean, this is what can happen. This is the risk that these teams run, and you got to kind of live with it. I mean, it makes it tough because of the tournament's in February, playoffs start in mid-April, so you're just hoping for not a really long-term injury if guy does get hurt. But in Vegas' case, like, they know how to work the system. They'll find another guy to plug in there.
All right, Joe. Excellent job as always. Really glad to catch up with you. You want to let everyone know where you're at on Blue Sky, please?
Yeah. Joe Yurden.bsky.social. Please, God, fix those handles on that website. For the love of everything, that's so bad. But yeah, find me there. Find me on Bleacher Report. Find me at notedhockey.com. Plenty of places all over the place to catch where I'm right.
Let's hear it for the first ever Blue Sky shout out on the show, by the way. That was we had to get you on to make that happen, Joe. Thank you very much for this, man.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
All right, be cool. That's Joe Yurden, Bleacher Report. You just heard the rundown, notedhockey.com. Excellent reporter and guy to follow on the Blue Sky app if you're over there. I'm over there. I'm just not as active as I'd like to be. It's, old habits and all that kind of thing. Anyway, more on this game, more on this tournament, more. Just inject it into my veins. 803-0550 is the number. You got a thought on anything that Joe and I talked about, that I've talked about earlier as this day has unfolded? I'd love to hear from you between now and the top of the hour. We'll have Paul Hamilton on at 6 to get his thoughts on the tournament at large and, of course, tonight's championship game of the Four Nations face-off between Canada and the USA. Again, the number is 803-0550. Lines are wide open, so if you want to get in, now would be a great time. Mike Schopp is off this week along with Zach Jones. I am the Bulldog, and you're listening to WGR.
We know
We'll get to that here in just a second, but first up, Four Nations Finals tonight in Boston. The United States takes on Canada, and good news for the U.S. head coach Mike Sullivan confirmed this morning. Everyone minus Charlie McAvoy will be available for the lineup tonight, though he would not divulge the starting lineup. And with that, no one else is out for the U.S., and that does mean Sabres forward Tage Thompson will not play for the States. For Canada, though, lineup news for them, Seth Jarvis will replace Travis Konechny in their lineup. Puck drop for tonight, just after 8 o'clock, and will be on ESPN. Now to the NFL, and for the Cowboys, 34-year-old guard Zach Martin has reportedly informed Dallas his intention to retire from the NFL. And in his 11 seasons in the league, all of which were with Dallas, Martin achieved 9 total All-Pro nods, 7 of which were first team. He was also a Pro Bowler in each of those seasons. And then some other news around the sports world. In baseball, the Yankees have announced a 2-year contract extension for manager Aaron Boone. And a reminder, this week is your last chance to go to Italy with Sal. Don't miss out. Go to WGR550.com and click under top stories, or call Travel Brilliant at 716-417-7824. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
The game has also never been bigger than where it is today. And that's exactly the opportunity that these guys have, is to play for something that's bigger than themselves. Some of these guys have never even played in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but people are saying that this game is bigger than the Stanley Cup game last year and any Stanley Cup game that we're going to see this year. So it puts it into perspective of the opportunity that these guys have, and they're ready for the moment. The whole world will be watching tonight. They're going to leave it all on the ice. It's going to be a tremendous show. And I'm going to tell you this, buckle up, strap in, pack a lunch, dinner, breakfast for tomorrow morning, whatever you need to do to get ready for 8 o'clock tonight, because it's all going to boil over.
That is former NHL defenseman and current ESPN NHL commentator PK Subban. He's part of the studio show for this tournament, and really their regular season stuff on a pretty regular basis has been him and Messier and Steve Levy handling the studio stuff. Very relieved to see Sean McDonough on the play-by-play tonight with the great, and I emphasize the great Ray Ferraro. He's like the best color man, maybe in any sport. I just think he's really, really, really good. And McDonough's never been my favorite, but man, I like him a lot more than Bob Wisuzhin, who does a lot of the ESPN and ABC games as well. He's just always at like a pitch that's just like a little too high for me, myself. But anyway, McDonough and Ferraro, I mentioned Levy, Messier, PK Subban. Those are your dudes on ESPN tonight for the Four Nations face-off finale between Canada and the U.S. And we have been spending really all day today talking about it and enjoying the conversation a lot of hockey, and it's felt really good, for me anyway. I mean, I think you know by now, if you listen on any kind of regular basis, I love the game. It might be, I love the game. I've always preferred hockey even to football. Love the Bills. Love the NFL. The action. I mean, it's the biggest of big times. Hockey. I had a call in the first hour of the show, and a guy I've heard from for many, many years, Jerry, mentioned how the NHL is often it's like a restaurant that's really, really good, but not everybody knows about it. And I totally feel that. Hockey for me has always sort of been, its place in the American sports landscape, at least in the United States, not North America, obviously Canada, it rules. But here it stands where it stands for a reason. It's something of a niche sport. And that has always kind of appealed to me. Like I don't need to always be, underground necessarily, right? But this game tonight feels to me like one of my favorite bands currently for the last 20 years or more is Wilco. And they play 5,000 seat venues, right? They play your standard Darien Lake type sheds. They don't play at Darien Lake. They played there one time that I know of as an opening act for Bob Dylan, actually. It was quite a few years ago now. But anyway, tonight feels like if Wilco suddenly was playing at a stadium. like a stadium like the Stones sell out, right? 75,000 people. And like Wilco is suddenly that popular. It would kind of freak me out a little bit, I'll tell you, to be honest with you. But it would be really cool if everybody loved them that much, even for just that moment. That's what this game kind of feels like to me. It's like so many people have been paying attention to this, and I think it's captured the sports fans, just the general sports fan, not the hockey fan, the sports fan, in a way that very few hockey tournaments, games, playoff series have. I think it came at a very good time. Canada and the U.S. on Saturday night was perfect. You do have the friction, if you want it, between Canada and the USA politically right now, that certainly can add to it if you're so inclined. But the tournament itself, the performances, the caliber of players, it just came at the perfect time. The NBA was having whatever that All-Star weekend was. It's just, what are we even doing here? I saw a rundown, in fact, at one point of some of the events there, and like the actual amount of basketball that was played. I think in the actual All-Star game, right? They changed the format this year. There were shorter games and more teams. It was kind of a round robin thing, and the amount of actual basketball that was played was ridiculous. Other entertainment elements and whatever. And hockey, meanwhile, had this battle for the ages going on over the weekend. Just amazing. The timing just could not have been better. And I really do hope, right at the end there, while we're talking to Joe Yurt in the last segment, I asked him, like, can this game possibly live up to it? You know? And I would tell you, if you're going to this game, and Joe said similar, if you're going into this game, you're like, well, there were 3 fights in 9 seconds last time, man. I can't wait to see what happens tonight. I think you might be signing up for a letdown. I don't have to be right about that. I wouldn't want to bet a lot of money on it not happening again, but my gut tells me it won't. I think there was a very special set of circumstances, first best-on-best meeting in a very long time for many of those players, and so the opportunity was there, and the U.S. has been kind of, in the backseat big time to Canada over the years. There are, we have our moments, 96, 1980, not that Canada had anything to do with 1980, but 96, a best on best. The USA did win, but you've got Olympics over Olympics and a gold medal loss in 2010. You had a gold medal loss in 2002 in Salt Lake City. So the opportunity was there. You get the right kind of players that deserve being on the team, not just because they are willing to fight and be physical, and the Tkachuk brothers, but the message that they wanted to send got sent. I'd be stunned. Honestly, I'll be stunned if any of the participants from Saturday are looking at least at the start of the game. Like, once the game gets going and somebody cross-checks you or slashes you across the wrist or whatever, maybe anything could happen. But as far as messages being sent and lines being drawn in the sand and all that kind of stuff, I just, if you're looking for that tonight because of what happened Saturday, I think you might be signing up to be disappointed. I just can't imagine Canada wanting to get into that. That's not the kind of team that they have built in the first place. Credit to the guys that stood up on Saturday, Hagel and Parayko and Sam Bennett, but I don't think it fits in this game. I think the opportunity was there to do that on Saturday. The U.S. did what they wanted to do there. I just would be surprised if there was anything like that, at least, again, to start this game. Maybe as it goes on, who knows what happens. But I'm just hoping for an excellent game. Like, I loved Saturday even without the fights. I mean, the fights certainly didn't bother me, but the caliber of player on the ice was so amazing on Saturday. And all I really need is more of that. I'd like more goals. I am, 5-4 is my dream scenario. U.S. wins, great. Canada wins, okay. Just give me 5-4. Give me swings and momentum. I talked about this a little bit on Monday. I felt like the idea, in my opinion, of that being the best hockey game you ever saw, or the best hockey game I ever saw, I couldn't get there because there wasn't enough emotional swings in the game. And I need goals to sort of swing that. And without it, it was excellent. It was great. It just doesn't rise to the level, of best game I've ever seen, best hockey game I've ever seen. If it were more back and forth, and, somebody just took a 2-goal lead. Oh, here comes Canada back with a goal to make it a 1-goal game again. Like, give me some of that. And I think you can improve on what we had Saturday night, irrespective of the fighting. I just think more goals would be great. I don't know how optimistic I want to be about it because these teams know how to defend, and the USA's got an excellent goalie, and Binnington has certainly gotten the job done well enough here for Canada. I mean, he gave up some pretty cheesy goals, but they've made the final, so we'll see if he can button it up tonight. But I'd be hoping for goals. I think that's the only thing that Saturday night, in my opinion, was really missing. 803-0550 is the phone number. You got a thought on tonight's Four Nations Face-Off finale? Would love to hear from you. Paul Hamilton coming your way joins me at the top of the hour for his thoughts on this game. And, sorry to bum you out, but the Sabres are back practicing, so we'll talk to Paul about how that's been going. Although I believe they had the day off today. They practiced Tuesday and Wednesday, so we'll get the lowdown on that from Paul as well at the top of the hour. But time for you if you want to get in here after this on WGR.
More of Schopp
I just threw up in my mouth. I'm not kidding. I've not heard this.
You have not heard this?
I've not heard. I don't know. I don't have my TV up on it. I've not heard it in the arenas. I know this is the goal song Team USA is using. I didn't know there was a. I didn't know that there was a 1987 Suzuki Samurai with a huge boombox in the back seat thumping through Freebird. I missed that. I knew they were using. I saw some dude sent me. Have you seen the video of the dude? I don't even know if that was a local dude or not. I just got tagged on Twitter. The dude lighting a cigarette and getting a bottle of Bud Light that had a little bit of beer left in it and like chugging it while playing the solo.
Yep.
I saw that, but I didn't know that there was this that. I didn't know that was happening to
incredible remix.
That awful, horrific bastardization of, a song that's been played to death, but still, it's still an awesome jam. I mean, it's just, I didn't know that it got all thumpy. I missed that. I was not aware. Anyway, well, I mean, go USA then, I suppose. Why?
It is one of those songs, like you're right, it's overplayed, but it's perfect.
Yeah, it could be a song. I know for me anyway, there was a point in time where I thought, I don't ever need to hear this song ever again in my life. Mm-hmm. I loved it when I was a teenager, when it was relatively contemporary at the time. Maybe even I go back that far, to early Lynyrd Skynyrd, pre-Plane Crash Lynyrd Skynyrd. I was alive for that. So love that song. And then, play Freebird, dude. Just, all right. Classic rock radio kind of pounded it through my entire brainstem and out the other side enough. Now I think I'm back. Although that
may have ruined it.
I mean, I hope they score 6 goals and I never hear that tonight.
I'm worried now that I may have ruined it for you. The first goal goes in, you hear it, and you're like, no, I can't do this.
I probably won't notice. The crowd will be screaming too loud. I probably won't be able to notice, and PK Subban will be crying, and it'll be awesome.
He picked the United States to win today 4-2. So
whatever. Let's take. I need some air. Let's take a time out here. Zach will have an update at the top of the hour, and then Paul Hamilton will roll in with his thoughts on this game tonight, the tournament thus far, and the Sabres back at practice, minus the guys that participated in the tournament over the past couple of days. I think they had today off, but they have a home game on Saturday. Weird time, right? 5:30 start, I think, on Saturday for Sabres and Rangers. Anyway, Paul Hamilton coming straight ahead. That's the point. I am the Bulldog. Mike's away this week. This is WGR.
Call or text WGR.
Suzuki Samurai pull, I think, was pretty solid. It's Bulldog here for Window Nation. It's kind of freezing outside. I'm sure you've noticed. Hopefully your home is staying warm inside. But if you're feeling that icy chill indoors, it could just be that your old windows are to blame, costing you heat and money. Right now, Window Nation has an offer you shouldn't pass up. 50% off all window styles and 0% interest for 5 years. It's the perfect time to upgrade to their energy-efficient windows built to lock in warmth and thus lower your energy bills. I trusted Window Nation for a redo on the windows in my attic studio, and I have felt the difference and seen the difference. No more drafts, just cozy comfort. Looks fantastic. Lots more natural light coming in as well. Really happy with the work. They're the best to work with. Expert installers. They have over 15 years of experience, and they back their work with a lifetime warranty. With over 33,000 5-star reviews and a #1 ranking on Forbes' list of best window installation companies, well, you simply can't go wrong. 50% off all window styles, 0 interest for 5 years. Don't wait. This deal will end February 28th. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com to schedule your free consultation. That's windownation.com.
And the old world charm of medieval villages in Umbria and Tuscany. We'll savor local wines, take part in a chef-led cooking class, and even enjoy an overnight stay.
Four Nations final tonight in Boston. United States taking on Canada. And good news for the U.S. Head coach Mike Sullivan did confirm that everyone minus Charlie McAvoy will be available for tonight, though did not divulge the starting lineup. And with that, no one else, of course, is going to miss tonight, and that means Sabres forward Tage Thompson will not play in this game. For Canada, their lineup news, Seth Jarvis will replace Travis Konechny. Puck drop tonight just after 8 o'clock and will be on ESPN. And do stay tuned for more on this game and for the Sabres, who are returning on Saturday. Paul Hamilton joins the show next. To the NFL, big news for the Cowboys specifically. 34-year-old guard Zach Martin has reportedly informed Dallas his intentions to retire. In his 11 seasons in the NFL, all of which were with Dallas, Martin achieved 9 All-Pro nods, 7 of which were first teams, and in all of those years, he was also a Pro Bowler. And then the Yankees, they've announced a 2-year contract extension for manager Aaron Boone. And a reminder, this week is your last chance to go to Italy with Sal. Don't miss out. Go to WGR550.com and click under Top Stories or call Travel Brilliant at 716-417-7824. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
I definitely don't think we've set any kind of a record for consecutive minutes or hours talking about hockey on this show. We've done entire days, entire weeks. You got to go back a long time to find entire days and weeks, but it's happened. But today has been a very hockey-centric day. I'm hoping tonight's game delivers something along the lines of what Saturdays did so that we can get a whole nother day out of it tomorrow. I would love it. I love being able to talk hockey and actually get calls from fans who feel somewhat as passionately about it as I do. I know Paul Hamilton is like-minded. Paul is already on the docket for tomorrow at 4, but he joins me right now to preview tonight's Canada-USA Four Nations face-off finale and also talk a little bit about the Sabres, who were back at work earlier this week. Paul's on the Western Hotline right now. P. Ham, what's going on, bud? How are you?
Bulldog, I remember when you used to talk about hockey in a whole show, and for weeks there was this word. I know it's something that we're not familiar with, but there is a word in the English language called playoffs.
Yeah.
And that's when you used to talk about hockey for long periods of time, but unfortunately we were young men back then.
I guess that to an extent is right. It has been a while. We're working on. Really, I got to ask. It's going to be year 14, right? Is that what this is going to be?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. That is. Yeah, I did not think. 5 years ago, I did not think that they would be approaching Bills drought territory, but yet here we are, and I don't know when we're going to see the sun again.
I would have lost a lot of money. The last time they're in the playoffs, if somebody would have said to me it's going to be 14 years before, right. at least until you do this again, I would have bet a lot of money against that, and I'd be out a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, this tournament, Paul, has been outstanding, and it does, I think, for a lot of fans, a lot of the feedback I've gotten today is, you got to go back to the 2010 Olympics with Miller and Team USA and Crosby ultimately getting the overtime winner on him in that tournament in Vancouver. The following spring, the Sabres are in the playoffs for the last time. Like, that's a long time ago, too, and that's where you got to dip into, I think, to find, for me anyway, and I think a lot of this audience today has felt similarly. You got to go back that far to have this much anticipation for a hockey game, because this thing is really captured a lot of people's imaginations.
I would agree, and we're going to get this now every 2 years, whether it's the Olympics or a tournament such as the Four Nations, and I even go back, because you're right, as far as that Miller-Crosby game, and Miller was just lights out. It seemed like he was going to steal the gold medal for Team USA the way he was playing. Best hockey I'd ever seen him play. And unfortunately, in overtime, it didn't go his way. But I got to go back to those series for Canada and Russia, and Lemieux and Gretzky playing on the same line together, and I mean the anticipation with those were just insane. The hockey that was played, and the grudge matches that were played in those, and Team USA was a part of that. But until Mike Richter won that one series for Team USA, they were always kind of the back seat. And then, Richter came to life, and Team USA was able to win that one. And now it's basically, whenever it does happen, it's been fairly even.
What I think stands out now, Paul, as opposed to that 96 series, I mean, there are plenty of Hall of Famers on that Team USA roster that beat Canada in that best-of-3 series. But I feel like right now, I would still give the edge to the very high end of the Canadian roster. McKinnon and McDavid and Makar, I think, are better, bigger stars, just better players overall than the very best on Team USA, but the margin is much slimmer than it was back then to me. Like, I can match the very top end of the roster, decently enough with Matthews and Jack Eichel and Jack Hughes, and even Quinn Hughes, who's not there, but if he were, I imagine he'll be along for the Olympics, provided he's healthy. That's, to me, the big gap closer, is that the very high end of the rosters are similar enough now, I think.
They're similar enough, but they still can't. I don't even think they can come close to McDavid and Crosby, even Crosby now, and McKinnon and Makar. It's just, I think they are, I don't know if I want to say quite a bit. I stopped by, but I don't think I want to say that, but I think they're significantly enough. I think where the roster gets evened up is in goal. Connor Hellebuck arguably is the best goaltender in hockey, and Jordan Binghamton's not even close. So he has won a cup, which Hellebuck has not done. So Binghamton is capable of stealing a game for you. He did that for the St. Louis Blues when they went from last place in the National Hockey League in January to winning the Stanley Cup. But since, those couple of years where he played really well for St. Louis, it hasn't gone as well, but he certainly is capable of stealing a game for you, and I think that's what he would have to do, because I think the gap in goal is even bigger than the gap at the high end of the roster.
I would say, I was talking to Joe Yurden an hour ago, Paul, and my observation was, I don't know about Swayman on this roster, but Thatcher Demko, certainly if he's healthy and is in that 3-hole, like I like all 3 U.S. goalies better than any of the Canadian goalies.
Yeah, Swayman, if he's playing like he did last year,
right,
is definitely a good. He's right up there with Ottinger and Hellebuck, but I still don't think he's quite as good, and I don't think Demko is either. But where's Canada? Canada's the only roster that has won the Stanley Cup in goal, and they got 2 of them.
Right.
But I'd take Ottinger and Hellebuck over Hill and Bennington any day of the week. I mean,
100%.
Even though those 2 have won cups.
Talking with Paul Hamilton here. He's on the West Her Hotline. The finale of the Four Nations face-off goes tonight a little bit after 8 o'clock on ESPN. Paul, do you have any, concern? I don't imagine you're concerned about it, but so much attention, so much hype. The casual sports fan, I think, has been pulled under the big top here in a way that doesn't happen that often for hockey. Do you have any thought about whether this game can actually live up to it? Because I think there's very high expectations for, a very, very, exciting, scintillating game.
I think absolutely it can, because, you just talked about the one that absolutely lived up to it when we're talking about Miller and Crosby in there and the Canada Cups and everything. So I think absolutely can live up to it. And I was asked earlier today, what about, starting with fights and all that? I don't know what to say about that. I would say probably not, but I wouldn't be shocked if it happened again. I really wouldn't.
I would be shocked. I'll say that. But I've also, because I've talked about this a few different times today, Paul, I did not see Saturday night coming from a mile away, let alone I had no idea that was something that could happen. I hadn't even thought about it, didn't consider it for 1 second, and then it happened. I was like, oh my God. And then, oh my God again. Oh my God, times 3. It was bonkers. So I wouldn't want to rule anything out, but what I've been saying most of the day here is if you're going into this game expecting that, I would bet on you being disappointed. Because I think Canada's not really, I mean, credit to them for participating, but they're not full of guys that want to send that message necessarily, I don't think. And the U.S. did what they did already. Like they drew their line, and I don't know, the time to send a message was maybe in that game in the round robin. I'd be surprised. Certainly, anything can happen once the game starts. Somebody slashes you across the hands or cross-checks you in a scrum, and maybe, the emotions are so high, you get it. But something off the hop like Saturday night, I would almost definitely want to rule out myself.
Yeah, I'm not expecting it, but yet I wouldn't be surprised by it. And you saw the response you got in Montreal. Try that in Boston. The fans will be coming over the glass. I mean, they'll go absolutely wild in there if it happens. And that's why I kind of have in the back of my mind, and if you're Canada, I don't think you want to agree to it. I don't think you want to get the fans in that much of a tizzy right off the bat as happening in Boston. So the U.S. might be up for it, but if you're Canada, I would say you probably wouldn't be a smart move to get that building even more wild than the Montreal building was, because it will be. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I think the script makes sense in hindsight, certainly looking back at it. Here's the U.S. Canada's kind of ruled the roost for all this time. They haven't been best in a long time. The game's in Canada. You've got the political environment if you need it at all. I don't know if it played any part in what the players did on Saturday, but certainly it was emotionally charged. And so I'm on the road. I'm in Canada, Team USA, first time wearing the sweater, all that stuff. Like, let's go. We want to send a message. You don't need to do that, I think, at home, and I don't think Canada would be smart to want to try to match it at all.
Especially in Boston. If maybe it was another building, if they're in Hartford or someplace, or, then it might be different. But I don't think you want to get those fans riled up.
How bummed out do you think it is for Tage Thompson to have gotten the call? And, I mean, I'm sure he knew what the lay of the land was and how likely it was that he would even get a chance to be in the lineup. Doesn't look like that's going to come to fruition for him. But, kind of a bummer. He went. I was maybe hoping that was, meaning that somebody was maybe in more doubt for tonight. But it doesn't look like he's going to get a look at it.
Well, I was reading that the flu bug was hitting Team USA also, and that's one of the reasons why he was there. So you look at that, and you're right. He would go pretty much knowing he's not probably going to play, but you never know. So he's living on the never know.
Right.
It's like, oh, that'd be awesome. Hopefully it somehow can work out. You don't want to wish injury, definitely. And Tage Thompson's not the type of person that would be wishing injury on anybody, but if it happens, he's saying, if somebody is sick or somebody is hurt, he's saying, I'm ready to go and I want to go. So, but I would, he's a smart guy. I mean, he knew going into it that there was a very, very big long shot. But hey, you might as well go and see what happens.
Paul, how much have you been following this McAvoy story about he suffered an injury and then there's an infection, and there's been some reporting that indicates that it was a shot of some kind, maybe to get him to play on Saturday night, and that maybe wasn't administered properly. And the Bruins, it was very noticeable to me anyway, that the Bruins announced he's out for the rest of the tournament. That was the Bruins, not Team USA. That was interesting. It seemed like the Bruins maybe had issue with how McAvoy was handled.
According to Elliot Friedman, they had a big issue with it, and they're not happy about it, to the point that next time they want, there's a big push now for doctors to be independent, not from a team. Elliott said the team doctors are from the Minnesota Wild because the GM is Bill Guerin, the GM of the Minnesota Wild. So they are not happy with the way it was handled whatsoever. And I think the reason the Bruins took over is it was probably very obvious McAvoy is done with Team USA for the rest of this tournament, and it was then that he's not playing. So we're taking this over. He's our player. We're taking this over. He's not going to play. He has no chance of playing for Team USA anymore. So it's now our thing. So that's probably why it was taken over. But Elliott is reporting that there will be changes because of this, and the Bruins are furious.
With the way that happened, and I guess you could even go back to the very first game of the tournament when Theodore got hurt for Canada and is now out, I think, in the rest of the regular season for Vegas. Have you thought at all about GMs or owners complaining about losing star players in a quote-unquote exhibition tournament, and could that gum up the works moving forward?
No, I think, well, this is the NHL, so I suppose it could. But you have to have hockey like this to sell the game. You have to. And you got J.J. Watt tweeting out, that this has brought so many new eyes to hockey, and he's just like crazy psyched up about it. And it has brought eyes to hockey, and I think you have to look what's best for the betterment of the game. If you're an owner of a team, you're not up for this, especially with the chance you could lose a star player, because who's playing? All the star players.
Right.
So if you lose somebody, you're losing a big part of your team. Like, I remember reading as a kid, when the Canada Cups and Gretzky was centering Lafleur and Perreault, and it was like Scotty Bowman said it was the best line he had ever seen, and he's seen some good hockey. And Gilbert Perreault was the best of the three playing left wing, and he broke his leg. And he was not available to the Sabres for a while because he had broken his leg for Canada.
Yep.
So that kind of stuff does happen, but I think for the betterment of the game, everybody's got to back off and let this happen.
I want to be in that camp for sure, but it does. I just want to point out, to be totally honest and fair about it, like, if Rasmus Dahlin and the Sabres were in a wild card spot and battling for a chance to end this drought, and something happened to him at this tournament, I think a lot of us might feel differently. I'm not speaking for you. I'm just speaking for myself.
No,
I
can honestly say I would say the same exact thing.
I want to definitely be there, and I hope we're all together come in the future that we have to deal with it. Not that somebody gets hurt, but you know what I mean. That the Sabres are in a playoff spot, and their star players are going to play in a best on best tournament, be it Olympics or World Cup or whatever. All right, Paul. We just got about 2 or 3 minutes left. The Sabres are back at work. I think today was a day off. They've got the Rangers on Saturday at 5:30. Interesting start time. But they were back on the ice on Tuesday and Wednesday, of course, minus the guys that were at the tournament, Joki Harju, Luukkonen, and Dahlin. Anything major to report? Or minor, for that matter?
Well, they were there. It was just a day off for the media. The media was not invited because they were not out. Other than Dahlin and Joki Harju, who would be making their first appearances, they weren't on the ice.
I see.
And when the team's not on the ice, we're not there. Most times when you see a day off coming out of nowhere, the team is there, but they're meeting, and they're lifting weights, and then the media is not there. We're there when they're on the ice. We had inquired we know at least 2 guys are going to skate. Could we come and just talk to them? And they said, no, it's
okay.
Team's not skating. Lindy had said yesterday that he was going to keep them off the ice, but they were going to do off-ice stuff, weightlifting, that kind of stuff, and meeting. So we knew, after Lindy talked that that was going to happen. So they were there. It's just after practicing them over an hour for 2 straight days with another practice coming on Friday, he wanted to get some off-ice training instead of on-ice training.
Okay, and what's the state of things here? We got some guys coming back that haven't been around in a while, maybe Greenway most notably.
Yeah, Greenway's still on track, so he'll play on Saturday. Samuelson is back. He said that he broke a bone in his foot, blocking a shot late in that game against New Jersey, but he's fine. He practiced both days, said he's feeling fine. It was a small bone, and it was something that wasn't going to keep him out long term, so he's ready to go. So really, Kozak was on the team when the team ended, but he has since been injured in Rochester and is week to week. So he's out. I don't know if it was in the fight he got in or right before the fight when there was a knee-on-knee. but he does have a lower body injury. So even though he was sent down during the break, so he's not really on the Sabres roster. But if you're going by who was when the last game was played, he no longer is available due to injury.
All right, Paul. Thanks a lot for this. We'll go over all of what happened tomorrow when you join me at 4. Thank you for this, man, and enjoy the game.
Talk to you then. Take care.
That's our dude Paul Hamilton on the West Her Hotline. His appearances here are brought to you by Equitable Advisors. Planning for your future is about more than just money. Let Equitable be your guide. And by Relax Honda. Relax, we got this. Departure from the hockey conversation. We'll get into some football with Spencer German from our Cleveland Odyssey station talking about Myles Garrett and trade ideas. I'm going to run my Greg Rousseau idea by him. So stay tuned for that. That's on the way after this. I'm the Bulldog, and you're listening to WGR.
We know you can.